Rob to talk you through all this.
I am full of love and solidarity and tap water.
grog to talk you through all this.
It's so Jover. It's never been more Jover than it is right now. Time to drink a Dr. Pepper to celebrate.
Two, check. Two, check 2. Welcome, chat. Welcome, chat. Nice to see you. Still reading all kind of connotations into my shirt here. Just fun. It's pineapples. It's tropical. I love pineapple. It's a delicious fruit. Delicious. Oh. I got my ticket for Twisters in IMAX. That must be what those nerds waiting for Phantom Menace felt like. I'm not so sure about this Twister sequel. I think the time to make a Twister sequel was like 1998. The time for a Twister sequel was 1998. What are we doing now? You know what I mean? I feel like too much time has elapsed. The first one does not need a follow-up. The thing is, I love Twister. I think it's fantastic. It doesn't need a follow-up at all. But it's like, sure, we can return to that world of the rough and tumble storm-chasing crew. You know? The Twister cinematic universe. The cast is so great, too. All the guys. Like, all the character actors are in there. You got Alan Ruck. You got Philip Seymour Hoffman. You got Cary Elwes. He, of course, tragically passes away in the film, but yeah, amazing cast. So I don't know. I think maybe 30 years later is maybe not. I don't know who this is for. I don't know that people were clamoring for a Twister sequel 30 years later. Gotta use that IP. They really missed by not calling it Twister again. Or you make the S in Twisters a 2. No? Twister 2, Twistier. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it'll be really good. I don't know. I don't want to shit too much on the Twister sequel. Maybe it will be excellent. I become Glenn Powell pilled. Is he that like the new kind of it actor who was in the Top Gun movie? Another 30 years later sequel? It's the new Cruise. There's never going to be another one. Tom Cruise was like created in a laboratory. You can't. There's one of those experiments. They created Tom Cruise in the laboratory and then it was tragically blown up. It got hit by lightning or something. They lost all their data and all their research. You can never do another one. Yeah, but Glenn Powell's not going to be in every Hollywood remake now. Does this guy act in non-sequels and remakes, or... We're stuck with Glenn Powell whether you like him or not. We don't need Tom Cruise. We've got Tom Cruise at home. It's Glenn Powell. I don't know. I'm just shitting on this guy. I'm sure he's a very nice man. I'm sure he's a fine actor. I'm just being petty. They're doing a Backdraft remake with Powell as well. Is that true? Are you just saying that to do a bit, or is that true? By the way, Diego, thanks so much for the 43 months of Prime and for all the support over the years, Diego. Thank you. And thank you, Kijiji, as well. Also for 43 months. Wow. 2 43-month resubs. That's so many months. I cannot believe I've been doing this show for 43 months. What the fuck? Backdraft movie remake in development with Glenn Powell. Okay, well, there we go. And The Running Man as well. Jesus Christ. Maybe they can make a new movie. I don't know. Does anyone ever think about that? Does anyone ever think about that wild idea? Maybe you can make a new movie. Maybe you could make a different movie and come up with something new. That's fun. Remember when we used to do that? You've been doing TRRS so long, there's going to be a Glenn Powell remake of the stream. You just show up one day and it's just Glenn Powell as the host. There's no explanation, just Glenn Powell with the glasses and the shirts and stuff. Glenn Powell. I'm just sort of excited they've maybe found some new movie stars in Powell and Butler. For sure. I'm more of a Butler head, personally. I'm Austin Butler squad. I remember watching Backdraft on TV while on the phone with my best friend for 3+ hours, the original watch together. I don't love Backdraft as a movie. I guess I haven't seen it from the beginning in a very long time, but it's got a fantastic score. It's an early Hans Zimmer banger. The Backdraft score is so fucking good. It's one of my favorite, like, orchestral scores. It gets me so hyped. Oh, you know I'm putting it on. You know I'm putting it on. This it? Man, it's so good. It just gets me hyped. Do firefighters salute? I don't even know. Oh boy, that's good shit. That could get me hyped up to do pretty much anything. It just makes me want to run through a brick wall. Wasn't it the theme to like a cooking show as well, like Iron Chef or something like that? I remember hearing. And that Hans Zimmer, man, he's got some bangers. There's no denying that. Ah. Now we're ready to go. Jennifer Jason Leigh and Kurt Russell are so unbelievable hot in Backdraft. Yeah, I mean, what, Kurt Russell in 1991? Yeah, it's hard to top that. And I guess Jennifer Jason Leigh as well, whatever. That was when they were trying to make Billy Baldwin into a big star. That was one of the big Billy Baldwin vehicles. Never really panned out for old Billy, though. Rob appears to have a soft spot for police and fire departments, as seen by his love for Backdraft and Kindergarten Cop. I mean, at least firemen like do something important. Like with a lot of cops, it's just like, what do you do here? What do you actually do? You don't prevent crime. A lot of time crimes happen, which you don't prevent, and then people come to you to tell them about the crime that happened, and nothing is resolved. You know, it seems like you just soak up city budgets and just kind of hang around and shoot people. And basically have like a state-sponsored criminal gang. Are we to the canceling women portion? No. Fire people. They at least contribute something. Seinfeld had a great unintentionally based bit about cops. You'll never stop crime. Grab a broom and start sweeping. Yeah. Now he would apologize for saying something like that. They don't even solve 50% of homicides most places. The most serious crime where it's almost always someone the victim knows. Yeah. They just seem like pretty useless. They seem pretty fucking useless. You know? There's that total, it's almost a cliche to point out. But, like, the idea of if you tried to have a fire department now, if you tried to, like, start that idea now, you know? They'd be like, what is this? Pay for your own... Why should I pay for my neighbor's fire getting put out? He should have had personal responsibility. Pay for your own firemen. You have these state-sponsored make-work jobs just hanging around in these clubhouses. More like the fire DEI department. There we go. There we go. Or a library. Yeah, it's like all these things had to be invented, you know, decades ago, or else it just would never happen. Yeah, Uber Eats, exactly. Uber Eats fire. Uber Eats fire. I think capitalists would still organize fire service to protect property and assets instead of people. Well, yes. Absolutely. Well, that's it. It's like if you could afford the protection, you'd get it. But it wouldn't be this universal thing. You just call the fire department and they just come to your house. You're doing credit checks. You'd be like a subscription service you have to pay for. Oh, you missed this month's payment, sorry. Get ready, your Uber fireman is just around the corner. It's just some like underpaid gig guy with like a pitcher of water. I don't know. It didn't go out, sorry. If the fighting was private, what's to stop them from starting the fires so they could get paid to put them out? It's a good question. It's almost like they would be incentivized to not, you know, build better infrastructure, not to build fireproof infrastructure, not to improve things when they're degrading. They would be almost incentivized to do that so then they could come in and fix the problem. It would be almost like that. We've determined the value of your objects and structure to be under our minimum value. Please contact your home insurance agency if you need more help. One of those square backpacks that have a few half-used fire extinguishers in it. Yeah. It's totally unequipped. Anyway, this is all to say that at least these people have a real job. Unlike cops. Firefighters used to be private. Competing brigades would show up to the same fire and beat the shit out of each other over territory while the building burned. Oh my. It's like a mafia style thing. This is our fire. Hey, Frankie. I don't know. Anywho. How's everyone doing? We spoke with Mehdi Hassan last night. We had Mehdi Hassan come on and talk to us about The Blue MAGA, Blue Anon, the Biden bros. That was a good conversation. What else did I do yesterday? I'm trying to even remember. I made some quite yummy chicken and cucumber salad. I'm really into cucumber salad right now. I'm in a big cucumber salad phase right now. It's so easy and quick to do, and it's nice in the summer. I've been eating a lot of cucumbers. When are you going to do the next cooking stream? I mean, I've never even really done a first one. I should do it, though. I've been saying for a while. I would love to do it. I love to cook. I'm always cooking stuff. There are tomatoes and feta cheese in there. Fresh maz also works. That sounds nice. I've become a pickle guy lately. Love pickles. Love pickles, Husker. Puke pilled. That's right. Yeah, no, that's been nice. So I made a nice dinner. We did the podcast. I watched the end of Acolyte. Is anyone watching Acolyte? Lodane, did you watch Acolyte? I feel like that might be up your alley. And it was pretty good. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I didn't really feel that much about it. It had a few pretty effective moments. I did block the spoilers on Tumblr in case I want to watch it. I would give it a recommend. I don't know. I want to watch The Acolyte, but I'm just so sick and fucking tired of the Jedi. Well, this is yet another example. This is another example of the Jedi completely fucking things up as well. And really just blowing it. Which I guess they have a long history of doing so. But there's some good characters. There's some big surprises. I would give it a recommend. I enjoyed it. Nothing has come close to Andor in terms of like the Disney Star Wars stuff, but this was pretty. It was pretty good. It was kind of a mild endorsement. We just vote Jedi in the next election. We can stop the Empire. That's right. We've just got to put all our confidence in this sect of space monks who just repeatedly fuck up over and over and don't realize the existential threat to our entire way of life while it's directly right in their faces. The attempt on my life has left me scarred and disfigured. That's what Trump's going to say now. With like the ear bandage. Well, that's the thing, Lodane, like with what you're saying about the Jedi. That's why I think you might actually enjoy this one. Because it really hammers that kind of idea. Trump literally is calling himself a shooting victim and talking about being blessed and forgetting all about the guy that died. I heard he's not going to go to the guy's funeral as well. Man. While I agree with the rebels on some key issues, I vehemently oppose their extremist actions. Violence has no place in the Galactic Republic. That's what I really loved about Endor, how it gets into that exact kind of like dynamic with Mon Mothma or whatever. And she gets so scandalized. She's trying to support this rebellion, and she gets so scandalized when violence happens. And then Stellan Skarsgård's character is like, what did you think this was? What did you think we were doing here? You know? And he kind of has to like pull her along into the fully supporting it. You're supposed to do a presser and then say, I dissent. That's right. Well, it's funny because now Biden is starting to talk about the Supreme Court. Here's what I'm going to do, Jack, about the Supreme Court. Well, why didn't you do that 4 years ago? And she does, big time. That's right. She comes through. Didn't bother watching Acolyte. Andor blows everything else Star Wars except for parts of the original trilogy so far to the water. But I'm just not interested in the parts of Star Wars that aren't about normal, everyday people struggling for something anymore. I think that's pretty fair. But I don't know. I still enjoyed the Acolyte. Didn't love it, but I definitely did enjoy it. There's parts, again, there's some big surprises. Some parts that I found genuinely quite affecting. And yeah, it kind of shows how this process begins of the old Republic starting to fall apart because of like the short-sightedness of the Jedi and their refusal to kind of like interrogate certain things about the way that they do things. Why do they keep saying Yoda's so wise after everything completely falls apart? Didn't they prove that he was not wise? That's true. It's more of a vibes-based. Analysis of Yoda. Bro, make me crave apples. This is a good apple, too. Yeah, I didn't watch any of the Boba Fett stuff. I watched a little bit of Mandalorian, but I didn't really get too far into that either. I think it's insane that they did two separate series. Like, they did the Mandalorian and the Boba Fett series. That's crazy to me. They keep telling him he's wise because their paychecks are attached to him staying in Jedi leadership. That's why he's still leading the council at 400 years old. All the Jedi consultants. There's a whole sphere of Jedi consultants that are materially invested in keeping the power structure the way it is. Too afraid to tell him it's a Yover. That's right. Anyway, I like the Acolyte. I thought it was pretty good. Excuse me while I finish my apple. Yoda keeps referring to Mace Windu coming back in a few minutes, even though he died 30 years ago. As soon as come back, Mace Windu does. Counterattack we will. They're looking around like the guys in Hitler's bunker. Master Yoda. Maybe I'll watch the Acolyte, but did not promise to like it. You don't have to do any such thing. You don't have to promise to like it, and you don't even have to like it. But I think you may enjoy it. Stop wetting the bed, you stop wetting the bed, you should. Expanded NATO, I did. Well, if there's one thing I know, it's definitely better than that Last Jedi. What a stinker that was. Hey, anyway. You should play Star Wars. Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 will help set you up. I probably should. I always wanted to get into those games. I just never really got around to it. I like how Obi-Wan kicked Anakin's ass again in one of those TV series. Well, I did talk about that when I watched the Obi-Wan series. And like that's been one of the big, questions about Star Wars. You have that big climactic battle on Mustafar with Obi-Wan and Anakin, and it's like you just leave him there. You just leave him there all burned up. And you just walk away. And then the Emperor comes, then he becomes Darth Vader, and they're doing like space genocide. So you'd think maybe Obi-Wan would learn the lesson. And then they have this big, they break canon basically to put them together again before they meet up again in episode 4. So they kind of really fuck with the canon by putting them together again. And it's kind of emotionally affecting. Because, Ewan McGregor's there. He's does a great job as usual. He sells how fucking devastating it is to see, oh shit, that's Anakin. He's still alive. Or he's not alive. He's dead, but this is what he's become. That's really horrible and traumatizing. But then they battle again. And there's things about the battle that I enjoyed watching. His mask gets all fucked up and you can see, just for a brief moment, the kind of angry kids that's still there. Then he does it again, though. Then he beats Vader again and leaves him again. Like, you can't, you know what I mean? It's like, even though it was cool to see, it was cool to see, them go at it again. But it's like, then you let him live again. And he goes on to do even more space genocide. Like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing, sir? Why'd you leave him again? You know what? So I watched that Obi-Wan series. I didn't hate it, but there was stuff. It really takes liberties with the canon, I think. Which is, I think, after the events of Revenge of the Sith, and Obi-Wan's in exile, and he doesn't really emerge again until decades later. It's like, no, actually he was out performing this super secret mission with younger Princess Leia, who has no recollection of him. He's hanging out with young Princess Leia, and that's never referenced. And he battles Darth Vader again and lets him live again. That doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm sorry. The weakness of Obi-Wan, exactly. Very weak. Sad. Many such cases. I just love that the universe is so big and there are so many powerful forces that the whole story being about the Skywalkers, let alone Vader, is as a force doesn't really even feel earned anymore compared to some other events. Yeah, well, I've talked about my feelings about The Last Jedi. I thought that was one thing that The Last Jedi did that was good, was try to move away from that. You know what I mean? They tried to move away from this saga about the sky and the whole thing with Rey saying, like, you're nobody. I thought that was one of the interesting ideas that Last Jedi talked about, which they just completely abandoned. They're like, no, she is part of one of the three families that matters in this galaxy, though. I guess that was my problem with Revenge of the Sith, is that everything that was interesting about Last Jedi, they completely undid it. Everyone got mad about that, so they immediately took it back. That's such a shitty way to tell a story, though. You're trying to appease these like reactionary people that just like are going to criticize whatever doesn't fit their like specific vision of what's going to happen. I loved that she was just a person. I thought that was going to be the case with Finn too. Yeah, and maybe they could have done something with him. But no. Damn it, Lodane. No, only our eugenic bloodline gets midichlorians. Yeah. Never watched that last movie, not listening. It's just so bad. It is so bad. Well, of course Avatar was better. Avatar is better than a lot of movies. I really went into Rise of Skywalker being like, well, how bad can it possibly be? Like, I'm sure it'll be all right. And it's really just fucking terrible. And then they did the exact ending of Avengers Endgame. They're just like, fuck it, just we'll do the exact Avengers Endgame ending. Just copy and paste that on there. It even somehow made Last Jedi worse just by making even more of its decisions pointless in retrospect. Well, that's the thing, like I talked about it the other day, Sean, killing off Snoke. For one, it seems like a weird decision to me because you've got Andy Serkis, like you can't do something interesting with that character. But they kill him off, which is a big, shocking, surprising moment, and that might be interesting, but then in the next movie they're like, okay, fine, we'll just bring back the guy from the other movie with no explanation. How about that? So they instantly make that entire decision totally pointless. Wow. We could maybe look at this JD Vance China thing after. And I think Carnova said something. So in episode 1, Shmi Skywalker explained that Anakin had no father. Does this mean he was created by a secret coven of Night Sisters? I don't know. I just don't know. You see, somehow Palpatine has returned, and they also reveal it with a Fortnite tie-in. Amazing. I don't know what my favorite prequel is, but I know that Revenge of the Sith is my least favorite. Oh, Mediated Self. I'm sorry, that's a freezing cold take. I love Revenge of the Sith. That's in my top 3. To me, Revenge of the Sith is my third favorite Star Wars. Big Revenge of the Sith head over here. I have to say I associate Star Wars in general more with the prequels than the originals. That's interesting. I do find it fascinating how the prequels have been somewhat rehabilitated. There's stuff that I like in episode 1 and 2. They're kind of uneven. But it's interesting how they've found a kind of they've have kind of a longevity. And there's kind of a fandom that's emerged around the prequels now. It's really bizarre being here in the future where the prequels are as old as the original films were when we were kids. That's bizarre. Axios reporting Biden may choose to drop out as early as this weekend. Yes, it's never been more Jover. We're gonna get to this soon, Husker. I'm just warming up my synapses by talking about Star Wars. I love spending hours and hours talking about this franchise. Little 3-hour Last Jedi warm-up. Attack of the Clones on mute is bomb. I don't know. I actually love in Attack of the Clones the first like 30 minutes where there's like the bombing assassination, and then you've got Anakin and Obi-Wan like protecting Padme, and then they go through that big like Coruscant like high-speed car chase thing with like the weird bug insects they try to use to assassinate. I love that shit. I like the stadium fight in Clone Wars too. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I'll allow it, Larry. I think some of the effects just haven't really held up very well from that whole ending sequence for that movie. Maybe I have to see it again though. Old Faithful, beating the Star Wars discussion into the dirt. Exactly. Why not? Why not just keep talking about it over and over and over and over again? Oh. I still can't believe how badly they botched that. They did a new trilogy and just botched it so badly. It's really amazing that they had an infinite budget. They had so much goodwill from people that hated the prequels so much. It's like, and they just completely fucked it up. It's really amazing. It really is fucking amazing. J.J. Abrams will pay for his crimes, but that's the thing. I like Force Awakens. That's my favorite of the Disney movies. I thought Force Awakens is totally solid. It's basically a remake of the first film. You've introduced a bunch of new kind of cool characters. Now you've set the table for some different stuff to happen. You know, I thought it was fine. Maybe I have a personal thing about it because when I saw Force Awakens in the theater, then the day after that, my son was born. So I have a personal connection to it, maybe. But I thought it was good. And I went into Last Jedi very, very excited to see it. And I was just like, within like 5 minutes into the movie, I was like, I was doing this face. Waiting patiently for another trilogy and Rob reassessing all 9 previous films. Hell yeah. Rob just wants the same slop over and over, so of course he likes Force Awakens and hates Last Jedi. That's not true. I don't want the same slop over and over. I would just like the new slop, to be good and not bad. That's all. But Diego, I know you're still with her, and I know that you're big into the Hillary fandom, and I know that's why you enjoy Last Jedi so much. So, you know, I get it. I don't want to step on anyone's toes or anything like that. If you love Hillary that much that you enjoy that movie, and I'm not going to take that away from you. Anyway, I shouldn't be talking about Last Jedi. We should not do it. It's become a joke. It's becoming like an ongoing bit now. Because I'm like, no, that's not going to get talked about. And then we still do it. We're still doing it. Where it's more me. It's more me that's doing it. But I think we've almost settled it. We've almost come to grips with this. Diego, it's not stupid. It's not a theory. It's not a stupid theory. Just look at Ryan Johnson on Twitter. He's like a brain poisoned Twitter lib. Is it that shocking that he would incorporate that kind of political view into his Star Wars film? I like this. Jay, thank you. I like the part in TLJ where Ryan Johnson stunted on the Twitter trolls who cost Hillary the election. I love that in my Star Wars movie. I love that. Everyone's coming down and Diego just comes in lobbing a grenade. Oh my. Oh my goodness. Much love for Babu Frick. I did like Babu Frick a lot. He totally he gave I can't even remember, Rise of Skywalker. Babu Frick raises that just like a percentage point. A full star. You get a full extra star just from the inclusion of Babu Frick. Can we get a Last Jedi band going? No. I think 5 years from now, we should still keep talking about it. I think we should still keep relitigating this over and over and over and over again. For years. I think we should spend the rest of our lives continually talking about this totally mediocre film. Just alienate everyone until it's only 2 left. Let's just turn this into a not even a Star Wars stream. I can become one of those like YouTube Star Wars guys. But we can just continually talk about The Last Jedi for 3-4 hours every single day of our lives. a podcast where you just watch The Last Jedi over and over. That would actually be quite funny. That's a pretty good bit. Do a special day for the Solo movie too. I haven't seen this Solo. I've heard it's not that bad either. But I just never got around to watching it. Does that mean that Oscar Isaac's character was the Bernie bro of Star Wars? Yes. Yes, Squatch. He didn't want to listen to the wise, experienced woman. He wanted everything right now. He wasn't trusting the plan. And he fucked everything up. By not listening to the wise, experienced Laura Dern character, whatever her name was. You remember they wouldn't let him know the plan, but then he also ruined it because they didn't tell him the plan. Yeah, that was interesting as well. Oh God, I gotta move away from this. We can't be talking about this. We cannot be talking about this. They didn't even tell him there was a plan. Yeah, we got to move on from this, though, Dayton. I agree. I haven't seen Outer Range, no. I guess this is how chat feels when I talk about hoops. No idea what's been going on in the last 30 minutes. Are you looking forward to Prime Minister PP? Well, no, I'm not. I'm still not convinced that he is going to be the Prime Minister. As much as everyone hates Trudeau, I don't know. Polyev, he's just such a nerd. I don't know. He has no charisma. This whole like fake working class shtick, it falls apart at the slightest scrutiny. I know Trudeau's very unpopular with good cause. But I don't know. He's just such a little worm. I don't know. And like, I don't think Quebec is going to go for Pierre. And I also kind of have a feeling that they're gonna like basically bribe us to keep the liberal ruling class in order. So maybe we might even get some goodies. They might finally do electoral reform. They might look at some kind of UBI kind of thing. How many times can the PM serve? There's no limit. There's no term limits. That's what we're in. It's an authoritarian dictatorship. We've got a political dynasty. We've got the son from a political dynasty leading the country. No term limits. Oh, like they're out of juice. There's no denying that. And Trudeau's deeply unpopular. There's this whole like movement that absolutely despises this guy for all the wrong reasons. It's a tanky red fash monarchy. That's right. The Liberals haven't done anything. But I mean, the thing is, like, this whole thing about Pierre Poilievre being some, like, working class whisperer, when it comes down to it and he has to actually explain what his agenda is, and maybe our media, the Hermit Kingdom of Canada, that's right. I think the more scrutiny there is on Poilievre and what his agenda is, which is just gonna, it's the same warmed over, trickle down conservative economics that's been in like the conservative movement hasn't moved on from for the last 30 years. It's cutting inflationary spending, so like, you know, the social safety net, education, healthcare, privatizing stuff, austerity. You know, they don't actually have anything to offer. And if I thought that the movement was being led by some like charismatic person who had the ability to build a movement, then maybe I would be concerned. But maybe he will be the prime minister. Maybe they will win. I'm not saying that they won't. But Pierre Poilievre is not Trump. He's not going to have this cult of personality, you know? He's a fucking nerd. He's got negative charisma. You have to have charisma to actually lead a movement like that. He has no charisma. He has no sauce, no juice. He has nothing. So maybe they might win. I definitely think it's possible, but is our Ted Cruz? I don't know. I feel like Ted Cruz is more charismatic than Pierre Poilievre. Yeah, I would say DeSantis is a good analogy. But he's like if DeSantis was less cool. But Canadian right-wingers aren't the same as U.S. either. I think we have a lot of liberal conservatives that like a nerd. Well, you may be right, definitely. You may be right. I'm definitely not trying to disagree. I think it's highly likely that they will win. But I do have a small hope that if an actual campaign starts, the reality of Poilievre's charisma vacuum and their bullshit conservative economic policies are going to have a really hard time dealing with the scrutiny and the spotlight. And I think, yeah, what did someone say a few moments ago? I lost it. Someone said, "Give me 1K a month and no tariffs on Chinese EVs." That's what I mean. I think they might bribe us. I think the Poilievre and the conservative program is going to fall apart under scrutiny, and I think we might get just straight up bribed. Anyway. Biden just looks like more like shit each and every day. He really does look like he's on death's door. Did you see the footage of him getting into the car yesterday? Every interview, it's worse. Every time you see him in public, it's worse. He's so fucked. And now just the whispers are getting stronger. It really does seem like it's Jover now.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Anon, for gifting a sub to Leaping Larry. I really don't understand the Canadian EV tariffs. You guys don't produce anything. It's not like you're protecting domestic EV manufacturers. No, I know. It's just because China bad and the U.S. State Department told us to. Because we don't have an actual independent, foreign policy. Joe Brandon told us to put tariffs, so we're putting tariffs. That's it. I love that Bernie's op-ed was basically, he should be the candidate and I don't think he'll make it through a second term. Yeah, that's really convincing. Thank you, sir. Obama's giving up on him. Yeah, it's Jover. It is absolutely Jover. Yeah, I want a 10K BYD as well. Those BYD cars are so sick. The only people who haven't given up on him are Bernie and AOC. Yeah. Think of all the leverage that they have, though. They have all this leverage to get Biden to say policies that he's not going to actually do. It was Jover when Clooney dropped. Yeah, I think it was Jover as soon as the debate happened. Since we're talking about Biden, I'm gonna go smoke a big old blunt. Well, we gotta talk about it, Larry. It's America Declines 2024. They see the Titanic going down. They can wonder, can they get first class seats? That's right. Like we were a situation where the left might not get blamed if Biden does lose, but let's make sure that we're connected to Biden anyway. So if he does lose, we can still get blamed for it. AOC and Bernie's weak ass. Now is the time we can pressure him. Excuse is so mind-numbingly stupid. The thing is, like, I understood that I didn't really believe it, but I understood that argument in 2020. But you tried that, though. That's what you did for the last 4 years. And that you used your leverage. And what was the result? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, are we the only ones paying attention to this shit? Series finale of the West. I just don't even know. I mean, I thought that's kind of what I thought about the 2020 election, and you never underestimate the empire, the like zombie empire's ability to just keep on shambling along. You know? I don't think he knows where he is, and Biden didn't respond with a wait a minute there, Jack. Jover right then. Yeah. Like I said, it was really funny not watching the debate, but just watching the reaction on Twitter. I was laughing so hard. Just watching the reaction online. This is the moment it was Jover. And I really hope we get to see it. I need to see the footage. I know there was a watch party of the like Democratic elites and the donors and the actors and Rob Reiner and Clooney and all these people. I know there's footage of them watching this shit. I have to see it. I must see it. I've got to see the footage of when people reacted to this specific clip.
System, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look,
it's just sad. If this man wasn't committing genocide, I would actually pity him in this moment. If he wasn't like actively sending a country bombs, that they're using the bombs to drop on little babies sleeping in tents, I would actually feel sympathy in this moment, because you see him hang his head because he knows now that he's lost it. He knows whatever thread that he was following, it's gone. He just hangs his head in shame. It's so pathetic. He's literally like a family dog that's just like ready to be brought to the vet or whatever for you know what for.
System, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of the
system.
I need to see the footage. I need to see the footage of the donors and all the hyper Democrat partisans watching that shit. I've got to see it. I know there's footage. Yeah, I need to see Obama watching that. We need rich people to have parties at snowy chalets with the Alps guarded by 500 goons with snowmobiles and SMGs again. I agree. Kind of like the beginning of True Lies. Josh Lyman in the corner losing his mind. Absolutely. I know there's footage, folks. Whoever's watching, China, North Korea, Iran, whatever hackers need to do to get the access to that footage, I need to see it. Obama's on Richard Branson's mega yacht pitching Netflix ideas. He probably doesn't care. I think he cares to an extent because it's partially his own legacy that's been destroyed over the last 8 years. Now, Biden was kind of an opportunity to rehabilitate his own legacy after opening the door for Trump. I want to see the footage of Rob Reiner melting down and lying on the floor. Absolutely. I want to see the footage of she watching it. See, I did try to create that. You know, we don't know what that footage is like, but I imagine it was something like this. Artist's recreation. I'm just happy he's happy. Me too. Yet she stays winning by doing nothing. Easiest empire toppling ever. Yeah, here's this footage like of Biden trying to get in this car, which people are diagnosing as a lot of this stuff as Parkinson's. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know how much truth there is to that. I couldn't understand the I couldn't understand the car clip. Well, you just see him trying to get into the car and he can barely he's all stiff. You have an aide helping him get in. He can't get into the car. More like bonitis. Doctor said I need a backiotomy. Literal dying empire. Again, as I've talked about a number of times, Dakadoon, there's no, you couldn't create a better analogy for this decaying, decrepit empire. Hello, Dan. I knew you were going to pick up on that one. I wasn't kidding when I said I'm an old school Chappelle head. Well, yeah, me too. I remember watching Chappelle on HBO Comic Relief when he was probably 19. I was 94 or 95. I saw people trying to be charitable with this one. I haven't watched this clip yet.
And so it's all about treating people with dignity. And it's about making sure that, look, for example, look at the heat I'm getting because I named the Secretary of Defense to a black man. I named Ketanji Brown. Because of the people I've named. And so,
very, very generously, he's trying to talk about how he's a black man. He's put people of color into these important positions. Very, extremely generously. the most generous possible interpretation. But yeah, still, that's not like you've put in a Secretary of Defense that has been your entire administration has been sponsoring a genocide of little kids. So it's still not great. No, it's not. Segregationist is never going to be able to talk about this in a way that's not pretty fucked up. That is true. I don't know if you agree, but I think people are overselling how many votes Dems will win back, even if they replace him at this point. Well, a couple things. I think a lot of people are not like political junkies that are paying attention to every single thing that happens. And just, I think if you put Kamala next to Trump on a debate stage, she's going to come across as being really impressive. She's going to have a little honeymoon period with the press. I don't think it's a guarantee that she or anyone else is just going to step up and immediately reverse their fortunes. They might be fucked either way. I'm not going to sit here and say that like Kamala would definitely win or anything like that. But there'll be a bit of a honeymoon period with the press. She will definitely look way more impressive in comparison to Biden and Trump. Trump and J.D. Vance stand for some very deeply unpopular policies with women's rights and abortion, and like they're extremists. They're extremists on these issues, which are really, really unpopular. And Kamala would have a lot of credibility to talk about that. I think Kamala gives you better odds of winning. Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, when she can be a prosecutor, she performs better. So, like, that's it. There's going to be no situations like the debate where it's like she just completely humiliates herself. Diego, thank you very much for the gifted sub. And I still love you, even if we might fight about The Last Jedi. I respect your opinion, and I'm glad that you enjoy it. So that's it. It's like you could focus, I think with Kamala there, you could focus more on Trump and JD Vance, who are like they're not unbeatable. You know, they stand for some really unpopular stuff. And Brandon, thank you for the gifted sub as well. So I think that's it. It's like I don't think it's a guarantee that she's just going to walk in and reverse all their fortunes. It's still not going to be easy, but you can definitely make a way better case for her over Trump. Okay, thank you, Diego. I'm glad we're not beefing. I would never want to beef with you. But that's it. I think there's a lot of things that like I said, just in terms of like the things like the debate, there's not going to be these like humiliating, the whole narrative now for like 3 weeks after that debate has been about Biden's fitness. And I think Kamala would just come across as being really impressive. Remember how impressive she was going after Biden in the debate? Like Kamala fucking destroyed Biden in that debate. Like she can be very good in those situations. Pretty good at cooking people in committees, too.
And I agree with you when
she almost ended Biden
commit
here.
yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing.
Look, everything I've done in my career, I ran because of civil rights. I continue to think we have to make fundamental changes in civil rights. And those civil rights, by the way,
even just a huge difference with Biden just 4 years ago. And he was already having big problems then. We were talking about it already. Still a huge difference, though, from 4 years ago. I'm actually surprised because I remember talking about Biden's cognitive decline at this time. And now, like, Biden from 4 years ago looks like a completely different person.
Include not just only African Americans, but the LGBT community.
But Vice President Biden, do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America then?
No,
do you agree?
I did not oppose busing in America. What
Joe,
I
that's cap.
is busing ordered by the Department of Education.
That's cap,
what
brother.
I opposed.
Well, there was a failure of states to integrate public schools in America. I was part of the second class to integrate Berkeley, California public schools almost 2 decades after Brown v. Board of Education.
Because your city council made that decision. It was a local decision.
So that's where the federal government must step in. That's why we have the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. That's why we need to pass the Equality Act. That's why we need to pass the ERA, because there are moments in history where states fail to preserve the civil rights of all people.
Like, so this is kind of what the point that I'm trying to make. You put that person next to Trump, and it's going to be a really different kind of situation in any kind of debate. Yeah, but it was a debate, and then she just, laughs it off. It would be rather funny if Trump just refuses to debate Kamala. Yeah, that would be funny. But he would look incredibly weak. Trump will just say wrong. Yeah, that's true. Anyway, this is all just to say that, like, while I don't think anything is guaranteed, it wouldn't be a guarantee if she does replace Biden that instantly all their fortunes are going to be reversed. But I mean, it would very clearly be a step up from Biden, and a lot of people that are kind of on the fence, that are not, brainworms, political junkie people like you and I, would just get to see that, and then the whole entire narrative would be completely different. When she dropped out before we got to the first primary, was that a good sign? Yeah, especially when she got basically anointed by the party and the media. Like, she was supposed to be the one. She was the first one when she launched the campaign. It was the big media period. She's the front runner. It's hers to lose, She basically, they tried to push her as that person. It completely fucking failed. They went to Joe after, they tried everyone before Joe. Joe was the last option. He was literally the last option. They're like, not even three. They were like, here, Kamala. Here, what about Beto O'Rourke? What about Pete Buttigieg? Fine. What about Elizabeth Warren? No. Okay, I guess Biden then. Fuck it. It was all there for her, and she completely fucked it up because she let her sister run a shadow campaign. Well, and she also, pivoted to the center as well. She had tried to, during the Trump era, she was, trying to... She was a signatory on Bernie's Medicare for All bill, was trying to have these, left-wing credentials, and then as soon as she started this campaign, she tried to triangulate towards the center, and there was no constituency for that. Liberal Party finally resurrects a conservative Democrat to defend its legacy with predictable results. Yeah, and as I've said many times, that's as wrong as I have been on a lot of things over the years. That's what I said would happen if Biden did manage to somehow become president, which is that it would lead to Trump again or an even worse Trump. And it certainly does look like that's where it's headed. I just remembered how much I hate K-Hive. Well, now K-Hive is Biden, and they're saying that the people that want it to be Kamala are like racist. That's how totally backwards that is. Kamala's also a Montreal person. Oh, wow. Now it's really Jover. Biden's lost Aaron Rupar. What did I say to him? I was in his mentions like a few weeks ago saying it's going to be so funny to watch you change your tune on this when the inevitable happens. And like Rupar, I've made no bones about the fact that I think Biden has got a bit of a raw deal, but it seems almost impossible to imagine him forging ahead with a campaign while reports circulate that most prominent Dems, Pelosi, Schumer, Jeffries, and now Obama think he should get out. Wow. It's like he lost Jeff Tiedrich. Jeff Tiedrich, to his great credit, after the debate, Jeff Tiedrich was like, what the fuck? Is Brooklyn Dad? I think Brooklyn Dad is still there. Yeah, I think he's the last holdout. And now I'm just looking at this tweet and I see a hurtful reply as well. That's good. What is this, July 18th? July 5th. Brooklyn Dad commits ritual suicide as Biden hands power over. He has no choice but to commit seppuku. This is so mean. Did you just get your wisdom teeth out, says this guy. I like this picture of me, sir. I think I look nice here. That's why I made it my Twitter picture. Who's this guy? Hater of racists, anti-Semites, homophobes, and transphobes. Mocking me for criticizing Aaron Rupar. I like this picture of me. People are so mean to me sometimes. This is the kind of shit that I have to put up with, folks. I'm the world's most persecuted person. What's wrong with the strong jaw? That's right. I've been jaw maxing or whatever it is, mewing. What is it? I did everything right and they make fun of me. They're going after us. Rob's just in the way. Thank you. Anyway, this is just funny. July 5th. July 5th. It's going to be really funny to see you backtrack on this stuff when the inevitable happens. July 18th, Aaron Rupar is like, well, Rupar has fallen. And this is really like where everyone's getting their marching orders now. Obama tells allies Biden needs to seriously consider his viability. I do love the infighting, Sinchal. It is fun. It is funny to see all this Dems in disarray. It's just total chaos. It's enjoyable. I'm honestly really shocked though at just looking at that footage of Biden of 2020, because we've been talking about his cognitive decline since at least 2019. But just that picture of him from the debate, that clip of him from the debate in 2020 is brutal. A massive difference. Well, what was our Shams have the scoop? That would be very funny if one of those broke the story. It's gonna be any day. Like he can't go on like this. Like he's fucked. You can, like, it's gonna be the next 3 months of this type of shit if he tries to stay in. You notice that all this is passive aggressive. He should consider. How about you just say he's not the candidate, Obama? Well, I saw Adam Johnson talking about this today too. It's like maintaining the emperor's ego is like this massive job that everyone has to tiptoe around. Biden expected to meet with Netanyahu next week despite COVID diagnosis. I say we take off, nuke the entire site from orbit. It is fucking insane. Yes, it is. Hi, Vio. This whole thing is just wild. Vio. I'm messing shit up already. I'm messing it up. Dude, are you fucking this up? So yeah, it seems pretty Jover. It seems very Jover. I just want to know when the news is going to drop. This is going to be historic. It's going to be a historic day when the news finally drops about how Jover it really is. You know, his last act is going to be to open up a bunch more oil drilling on Wildlife Refuge. One final shipment of 500 kilogram bombs. The amount of It's Jovers we're going to see on the timeline. It's going to be truly historic. It's going to be a historic amount of Jovers happening. A lot of people are saying to do it during Trump's acceptance to overshadow him. I don't know who came up with Jover. It's a good question. You see him struggling with the airplane steps as well. Like, he just looks brutal. Sorry if that was very loud. I apologize. This is how low the bar is. They're like, look, he can almost go all the way up the stairs by himself. It's his stutter that makes him walk like that. That's right. Yeah. Joverticulitis. It's the vaccine making him shake. Vio, I got a question for you, okay? This is one thing I wonder about sometimes. You know those like viral posts from like random people that took the vaccine and went like this? What I'm wondering is, are those people still doing that now? Now that no one really cares or shares those kinds of clips anymore? Do you think there's still people that are like pretending that that's the thing? Or are they like, I feel better now. I'm better. I don't know. It's only when people are recording them. That's true. Yeah, is when it kicks in. The 5G from the phone's activated. That's how the CCP, that's how they get you. You get the nanites in your bloodstream, and then the 5G makes you do that. No, I'm just wondering if there's still holdouts though that are still pretending that that's a thing, or if they've come up with some kind of like convoluted lore to explain why they're fine now. You don't see a lot of those folks anymore. Where are they now? I'd be wondering. It was funny because it's not only like people that would only when a camera was present, but only conservatives. It's this weird affliction that only affects conservatives, anti-vax conservatives. There was no one that's like, I love the vaccine. I think it's good to take the vaccine. That happened to. No Brandon voters did that affect at all. It was only conservatives. Oh man, I actually have a clip of this. Is actually pretty frightening. Anti-conservative bioweapon. If that was real, then that's something that I would support. You know, I don't think that would be a bad thing. I just don't think that was the case here. I did just find this clip though. This is a really terrifying clip of someone that did take the vaccine and did have some really unfortunate side effects. Very unfortunate. I know it's tough to look at. I know. Oh boy. I love how she always pretends to hold out a mic. Listen, I'm old. Like, I didn't know who JoJo Siwa was. I guess my understanding is she's kind of a former child star that's now getting into that like edgy phase. But there's something about her weird dance moves that they stick in my brain. It's just so bizarre. Like, I sometimes just think about her doing that, and I'm just like, what? Why would you do that? What is that? And she has a new one. She has a new single. I saw it on TikTok today. And there's a whole new weird dance that she's doing now. I couldn't bust out the dance. It would hurt my neck for sure if I was trying to do that. As a former child star, is this your edgy phase? I was not a child star, okay? I was not a child star. Anyway. I'm trying to I can't even find on Twitter anymore any of these these vaccine people. The vaccine shakers. Oh yeah. I'm sorry for laughing. It's like, but it's like, come on. Lady, what are you doing? Just stop. Just stop this. Please.
Just video it. There's no sense of holding me.
Come on. I guess that's what I'm wondering. Like, is this lady still like this, or was this just a phase? There's no way that these people truly believe this happened from a vaccine. Many people did believe it, though. I don't know if they themselves believed it, but lots of people were sharing this as evidence of the Brandon vaccine. It's the dangers. The dangers of the Brandon vaccine. Put it to a club beat. I don't know if I have like appropriate music for it. Hold on.
Just video it. There's no sense of holding me. It doesn't help.
Oh, okay. All right. This is getting ridiculous. I'm trying to be serious. We're trying to talk about some serious political issues here. We're getting derailed with this tomfoolery. I'm glad you all enjoyed it, though. When that 5G hits, it's true. Oh. I hope she's never in a movie with Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward. She'll give away everyone's position. I know. The graboids would be all over that. Look, we got another one. DJ Khaled voice, another one. Mia Farrow has also fallen. They're all jumping ship. They're all jumping ship now. This just came out in Politico as well. The walls close in around Biden. We've covered Pelosi for a long time now, and we can tell you her fingerprints are all over the knife. I want him to tell Joe it was me. I want him to know it was me. She was there like spraying COVID spray all over the White House doorknobs. Does anyone have the clip of Biden going down the stairs, pausing, and then smiling like a weirdo before resuming his steps? I don't think so. I don't think I've seen that one. He just looks worse in every single clip that I see. Here's from this piece in Politico, though. The walls are closing in around Biden. For weeks, the Democratic Party has been paralyzed by uncertainty about whether President Joe Biden should stay atop the ticket or step aside. But over the last 24 hours, that uncertainty has given way to a growing clarity about the reality facing the president. The walls are closing in, and his position leading the Democratic ticket appears increasingly unsustainable. The president's re-election bid has now lost the confidence of Congress's senior-most Democratic leaders as well as party elders around the country. Yesterday alone, ABC News' John Carl scooped on World News Tonight that Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries told Biden in person that he should end his re-election campaign for the good of the country. CNN's MJ Lee, Jamie Gangel, and Jeff Zeleny reported that former Speaker Pelosi told the president that he can't win and is dragging down the party, jeopardizing potential majorities in Congress. Adam Schiff, Pelosi's longtime protege, became the latest Hill Democrat to publicly call on Biden to step aside, arguing that he has serious concerns about whether the president can defeat Donald Trump and it's time for him to pass the torch. Biden's confidant and campaign advisor Jeffrey Katzenberg confronted the president about new financial woes, telling him that big donors, skeptical that he can win, have all but stopped writing checks. Senior Democrats started privately circulating jarring numbers from Blue Rose Research, which found that just 18% of voters and only 36% of people who voted for Mr. Biden in 2020 believe he is mentally fit and up to the job of being president. Other super PAC polling shows Biden's deficit growing to 5 percentage points or more in the must-win states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And DNC officials were pressured by their own party into pushing back a virtual roll call nominating Biden after an attempt to move it up was seen as a way of assuring Biden could run out the clock on the dump Biden crowd. Sir, you must commit seppuku. Like, even from like a cynical, narcissistic perspective, this is the best course of action for Biden because they're all going to give him this big honeymoon. Like, they're all like, talking about what a great man he is. Like, they're all couching all of this criticism and like talking about how wonderful he is and how great of a job that he did. There will be this whole sycophantic like narrative that takes place if he does step aside about his bravery and he's serving the country with his ill health and all of the fantastic things that he did. If he tries to hold on to it, withstand all this shit, and then gets annihilated by Trump, his legacy's just in the shitter. And it should be in the shitter. Like I said, he's supported the mass murder of children over the last 10 months. So there's no fucking legacy to speak of. But these people would at least still kiss his ass. Why does part of me think he's faking COVID to have some weird ass excuse to drop out? Well, it was like within a span of hours, within a span of hours, there was this stuff, these reports that like, oh, maybe I would step aside if a doctor said that I had to. Literally like 4 hours later, it's like Biden has COVID. Like, it certainly seems that way. Trying to see if I can find the two back to back. But I mean, you all saw the tweets. I don't know. It's the Biden cope is just getting more and more unhinged each day. I mean, imagine still holding on to this. You know? This is like, it's crazy. Like, and this is what we talked about in our podcast with Mehdi Hassan last night, which you can listen to over on the Insurgents Substack page. I think we should update that as well, because I think it's now just insurgentspod.com. Anyways, it's exactly what we talked about. These people that are just latching onto these completely nonsensical conspiracy theories rather than just believing the evidence of their eyes and ears. Ignore the evidence of your eyes and ears. No, this is all a vast conspiracy with George Clooney and Rob Reiner and CNN and the New York Times and these media conglomerates. They're all teaming up to falsely give us the impression that Joe Biden cannot fucking talk barely anymore. What is the easier to understand explanation? Which is more likely? Like, let's look at the Occam's razor situation here.
We're going to begin with a new setback.
Let's see how Hero State Media is covering it.
Cancel campaign events in Nevada after a COVID-19 diagnosis. Now, the news comes amid renewed calls for him to drop out of the 2024 race from a growing list of prominent Democrats. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, among them, reportedly spoke
Nancy Pelosi, young, spry,
with President Biden over
dynamic,
the phone,
full of
saying
energy
that the polls
herself.
show that he cannot defeat Donald Trump in November. So for more on all of this, let's bring in CBS News White House reporter Willie James Inman. And we're also bringing in CBS News political contributor Joel Payne. Good to see you guys. Willie, I'm going to start with you, though. Just kind of bring us up to speed. How is the president doing this morning? How is the White House handling the messaging surrounding his health?
Hey there, Anne-Marie. Good to be with you this morning. Well, President Biden is isolating here at his Rehoboth Beach, Delaware home because of that COVID-19 diagnosis. Now, we know that he tested positive after not feeling well. Yesterday, he had to cancel his appearance at that event.
He tested positive for being 9,000 years
old. The
old.
White House says that he will still be able to carry out his duties as president while isolating away from others amid this COVID-19.
It's the Biden soy face. Soy Biden. Got a bad case of the pudding brain. Hunter has something that can cure COVID in 24 hours. Yeah, Hunter's showing up like John Goodman in that movie Flight. I'll get him back on his feet. Ooh. Just instills you with confidence, doesn't it? And shaking hands and boarding the plane maskless. Yeah, great job, sir.
Diagnosis. We know that the president had some mild symptoms. He had a runny nose. Excuse us here, as we're near the fire department, so you're hearing those sirens there. But the president had a runny nose. The president had a non-productive cough, according to a note from his doctor. We also know that he is taking Paxlovid. That's that drug that you take.
And he was apparently sick during the
onset of
debate as well. Like, how long has he been sick for? What happens when you're like 83 years old, 81 years old, and you keep getting chest infections, respiratory infections? Is that good? He was sick during the debate. That was like 3 weeks ago. How much is this guy sick?
A diagnosis, and the president perhaps feeling well, isolating a little bit. We haven't yet gotten an update from the White House about his condition today, but I anticipate that will be coming later in the day. The president, of course, has no public events since he's isolating, but as you mentioned, this diagnosis comes at a time of really just uncertainty with his campaign, as more and more Democrats, including prominent Democrats like former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, essentially call for the president to step aside in terms of his campaign for the presidency yet again.
Right, and that's what I want to talk to Joel about. Yep, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, we're hearing reports that she's been speaking privately with the president, showing him polls. We know Chuck Schumer as well has been more public about maybe it's time for him to step aside. So, biographer Susan Page.
Oh, the Complex interviewer actually did get COVID. I thought that was just a joke.
Of of all of this. I want to play a little bit of what she had to say, and then I want to talk to you.
This.
Thank you, No Context Gus, for the gifted sub. Very kind of you.
On the back end.
Nancy Pelosi loves Joe Biden and has worked with Joe Biden for decades, but she is not a sentimentalist when it comes to politics. She is a vote counter in the House and a vote counter when it comes to elections. I am told, sources close to Pelosi tell me that she is talking to many House Democrats.
They were in a 200-person theater and had to sit close enough together for him to hear him because Joe is so feeble. Fantastic.
Democrats to figure out if Biden could cost them any chance they might have of regaining control of the House.
So, boy, Joel, it certainly seems like Democrats, those who are concerned and those who are not, are finding themselves in this sort of real catch-22, right? If you truly believe that there is a better alternative to President Biden, you may feel compelled to be more and more overt about it, to be more public about it. But the more you do that, the more you are broadcasting to voters that some Democrats do not have faith in Joe Biden. And if he doesn't step aside, that only weakens the candidate. I can't imagine the difficulty.
This punditry is so painful.
The question I'm sort of asking you is, how do you strategize your way through this, especially when, the party's, it feels like the party's running out of time?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, Anne-Marie. So first, look, I think it's important to point out that Speaker Emerita
I'm just going to get some more something to drink, folks. Chad, I'll be right back.
Neither
I almost called you
Leader
Buddy
Schumer
because that's what I call my son.
Jeffries.
I'm sorry.
However, it's pretty clear that they and the folks around them wanted the public to know that they have had these very candid conversations behind the scenes with the president. I always tell folks that when you see reporting like that, somebody wants you to know. They want you to know that they are having those conversations, because I think they are pretty clear in their assessment that the current state of the ticket is untenable, and that something has to change. Either President Biden's performance has to drastically change, or the dynamics of the ticket have to change. And, for those who've been watching this, Speaker Emerita Pelosi, to me, has been the key figure to watch, because she is the only person within the larger Democratic establishment, the Democratic Party coalition, that has relationships with every constituency. Okay, she's respected by the CBC, Black members of Congress and their constituents, the CHC, the Hispanic constituency, the CPC, the progressives, mainstream, new Democrats, frontline Democrats, people like Jared Golden. She has respect and she has credibility with everyone. So when she speaks, everyone listens because, as Susan Page indicated in that interview with John, she's the best strategist in the Democratic Party. I think in terms of what is the way forward, I think the way forward is to continue to show the president undeniable data, both that shows maybe what his viability is, but also what his real challenges are, and try to have an honest, candid conversation with him and arrive at a quick resolution. The last thing I'll say, I kind of think about this moment as like a kind of jokingly call it the five families of the Democratic Party, right? Like the Obama, the Biden, Pelosi, Schumer, Jeffries, they got to come together. They got to sit in a room and they got to hammer this out. And I think that what we're seeing is maybe the beginnings of that process, not as much noise.
And then Bernie and I'm not muted. And then Bernie and the squad are like, we still support you, Joe. Good job. Very good. Oh, this punditry is so painful. I don't know how our parents watch this shit all day. No, I'm not muted. In fact, I'm so much of a professional streamer that I made sure to check. That's how much I know. How seriously I take streaming. In the second term, Joe's going to give us everything, says Bernie and AOC. He's turning over a new leaf. He's going to finally do all that stuff. What to do next? I was thinking about watching J.D. Vance's speech. He spoke last night. We can take a look at that. There's also a breakthrough news video. 36 minutes of J.D. Vance. I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can do a 36 minutes of a J.D. Vance speech. Have you seen some of the insane race science that like some of the Groypers are doing? Because they're freaking out because J.D. Vance's wife is Indian. All the Groypers are in meltdown mode because he is like a Groyper. He's like J.D. Vance is himself like a Groyper, and now all the Groypers they don't know how to handle this information. Let's talk the Matt Gaetz blow up. Yes, I have seen that because I'm too online. Like, sir, what is this? What is this? Oh yeah, they don't care. It's not about Raven. It's not about politics or like ideology. It's purely just race essentialism. Chronology. He hasn't finished rendering. Did you get Botox that day? I think he overdid it just a little bit. Some examples of Groypers and other right-wingers furious about the Indian wife. Yeah, like this is insane. This person says J.D. Vance's wife is Indian, by the way. Randy Trebell says she has more European physiognomy, though. Her bloodline is probably a mix of early Macedonian invasions. Like, guys, what the fuck are you doing? What is this? What is this ideology? This is insane. And this fucking dork.
Also has a non-white wife, an Indian wife, and a kid named Vivek. All his kids have Indian names. So it's like, what exactly are we getting here? And that's not a dig at him just because I'm a racist.
It is, though. It is, though, sir.
Like, who is this guy really? Do we really expect that the guy who has an Indian wife...
It's exactly why.
Vivek is
what are you talking about?
White identity? Like, there's a...
It's not that I'm racist. It's not that I'm saying this because I'm a racist. I'm just saying, why is this guy with an Indian wife going to fight for white identity? It's like, Nick... That is like definitionally what being racist is. It's like when they went after the viral white lady the week before with the mixed kids. Yeah, I mean, how pathetic it is to try and turn to the right-wing grift and they just like, you completely fall on your face. And even the groypers they are trying to appeal to, they all hate you. He said, it's not just because I'm racist. But I mean, even the thing that was apparently not racist was still racist. So here's the Gates again, though. And my comparison was Bruce Campbell in Escape from L.A. You know? Yeah, thank you, Joey. Yeah, the lady who said slurs in a TikTok to try to get a right-wing grift career. Yeah, and it didn't even work. And now now no one cares about her. Surgeon General of Beverly Hills ass. By the way, this is so good. This is just like the store brand fizzy, like soda, citrusy soda. Key compliments fizzy key lime. Very good. Store brand fizzy. Very good stuff. Yeah, they were doing physiognomy on her within days to prove she wasn't really white. And they were also transvestigating her. They were delving deep into her racial physiognomy and they were transvestigating her as well. So great, that was a great right-wing pivot for that lady. I don't know, maybe I can speed this up.
Aren't I a lucky guy? Isn't she lovely? Isn't it amazing?
This fucking dork. Is Escape from LA good? I haven't seen that one. I think I saw it in the theater and I don't think I've seen it since.
Greetings, Milwaukee, my fellow Americans and my fellow Republicans. My name is J.D. Vance from the great state of Ohio. Tonight, O-H-I-O, O-H-I-O. You guys, we're gonna chill with the Ohio love. We gotta win Michigan too here, so.
I'm from Ohio and only when guys like this say it's great do I disagree.
A celebration of what America once was, and with God's grace, what it will soon be again. And it is a reminder of the sacred duty we have to preserve the American experiment, to choose a new path for our children and grandchildren.
Reminder as well that it was liberals that propped this guy up.
That this evening could have
this
been
guy's
so
an
much
entirely
Instead of-
this guy is entirely a creation of the liberal media establishment. The beard is doing a lot of work. Absolutely. Well, no, I wouldn't even say Ron Howard because I think by the time they made the film, the damage had already been done. it was liberals in the post-Trump era holding up hillbilly elegy like it was some like sacred text that some skeleton key that explained how their reality had completely fallen apart. And this man has the key to understand what people are thinking in these regions. Yeah, the poor whisperer. This guy who took he graduated from Yale and got a job, I think, at the Heritage Foundation. Yeah, it's great. This rural whisperer, rural voter whisperer. So yeah, I think worth pointing that out.
A day of celebration, this could have been a day of heartache and mourning. For the last 8 years, President Trump has given everything he has to fight for the people of our country.
Venture capitalist hillbilly.
He didn't need politics, but the country needed him.
Yes, this man's got his ears to the ground. And just pathetic, too, because one of the reasons he got propped up by the liberal establishment not only was because of the book Hillbilly Elegy, but also was because he was a Trump bad guy. Remember how the liberals, they'll embrace any fucking psychotic conservative as long as they say Trump bad. John Bolton, whoever, like George W. Bush, like Dick Cheney. They will celebrate any of these people as long as they just say Trump bad. And this guy said Trump was bad until it was better for his career to be like, no, actually, I completely changed my mind on that. And he did. America's Hitler, he called him. Follow some interesting accounts on Twitter. No, it is insane when you look into the kind of shit that he's into. It actually is. And also an adult Catholic convert, which is fucked up, I'm sorry to say. Yeah, let me know if you can find it. Theo.
For president, he was one of the most successful businessmen in the world. He had everything anyone could ever want in a life. And yet, instead of choosing the easy path, he chose to endure abuse, slander, and persecution. And he did it because
from J.D. Vance. Trump is he has such a hard life. He's so persecuted.
I want all Americans to go and watch the video of a would-be assassin coming a quarter of an inch from taking his life. Consider the lies they told you about Donald Trump, and then look at that photo of him, defiant, fist in the air. When Donald Trump rose to his feet in that Pennsylvania field, all of America stood with him.
Did they? Trump barely even seems impressed, too. He's like, yeah, you hogs. Look at him. He's like, you called me Hitler, you son of a bitch. Now look at you. You tried to come against me. Now look at you groveling. You little worm. Look at his face.
And what did he call us to do?
No juice, Max.
To fight for America. Even in his most perilous moment, we were on his mind. His instinct was for us, for our country, to call us to something higher, to something greater, to once again be citizens who ask what our country needs of us. Now consider what they said. They said he was a tyrant. They said he must be stopped at all costs. But how did he respond? He called for national unity, for national calm, literally right after an assassin nearly took his life.
He loves picking people with no sauce. But I think the difference is, in the previous election, he picked Pence. Who was it running? He was chief of staff at first. It was like Reince Priebus. It was all these like RNC ghouls. So even though J.D. Vance is very sauceless, he's not part of that like Republican Party establishment. That is one big difference. And J.D. Vance will do whatever the fuck he's told. If Trump tells him to overturn election results, he's going to overturn the results. Pence was a sauce void. He has anti-sauce. It's true. Just a total nothing. Yeah, new money.
He remembered the victims of the terrible attack, especially the brave Corey Compertori, who gave his life to protect his family.
Barely,
God bless him.
Barely applauding for him.
And then President Trump flew to Milwaukee and got back to work.
You get a little cut on the ear.
Now that's the man I've gotten to know personally over the last few years. He is tough, and he is, but he cares about people. He can stand defiant against an assassin one moment and call for national healing the next. He is a beloved father and grandfather, and of course, a once-in-a-generation business leader. He's the man who is feared by America's adversaries, but 2 nights ago, and I'll share a moment, said goodnight to his 2 boys, told them he loved them, and made sure to give each of them a kiss on the cheek. And I will say, Don and Eric squirmed the same way my 4-year-old does when his daddy tries to give him a kiss on the cheek. Sorry, guys.
Hilarious.
He is all those things.
Look at
but
this!
tonight
Look at this
we
charisma
celebrate
just
he is
really
our
leaps
once
off
and
the
future
screen.
President of the United States of America.
I'm just being enraptured by the fiery rhetoric of this man.
Now,
the command he
I
has
want to
over
respond to
people.
his call for unity myself. We have a big tent in this party on everything from national security to economic policy. But my message to you, my fellow Republicans, is we love this country and we are united to win. Right. Now, I think our disagreements actually make us stronger. That's what I've learned in my time in the United States Senate, where sometimes I persuade my colleagues and sometimes they persuade me. And my message to my fellow Americans, those watching from across the country, is shouldn't we be governed by a party that is unafraid to debate ideas and come to the best solution? That's the Republican Party of the next 4 years. United in our love for this country.
What about his
and committed
obsession
to
with
free
birth
speech.
control and reproduction and abortion and shit like that? He doesn't want to debate that. He's just like, ban it all. Where's this idea that in the Republican movement they're all about debating ideas and coming to terms with one another and all this bullshit? What the hell is he talking about? You know what I mean? It's like this whole fucking idea. They support all this marketplace of ideas. Absurd. Do they have different ideas about like whether there should be a social safety net or like law and order or on taxes? No, I think they have a very specific idea about how all those things should be. I don't know.
And the open exchange of ideas. And so tonight, Mr. Chairman, I stand here humbled, and I'm overwhelmed with gratitude to say I officially accept your nomination to be Vice President of the United States of America.
I don't think I can do this whole like 30-minute speech, honestly. He's got no charisma and he's just a weird little creep. I did want to talk a little bit about the foreign policy stuff. If I can find just those specific clips. Because you still have some people like trying to suggest that he has this like differing foreign policy views, which is not really true at all. Let me see if I can find this. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. Trump will call for Vance's extreme sentencing 4 years from now. Probably. Yeah, as soon as he displeases him. The Twitter search function is just so fucking broken. I mean, I guess my point is that, like, I did see some people still kind of circulating this idea that Vance is going to have, like, a sort of different foreign policy. But we talked about this over the last couple of days. This whole idea that, like, Vance, even though he might take certain stances specifically about Ukraine, we just talked about, like, it's, you know, it's the difference between this liberal and reactionary strategy of American geopolitics, whether you should go after China and Russia at the same time, or trying to pull Russia into a closer alliance and focus entirely on China. I mean, there's not, and he's talked about bombing Iran, you know, the idea that he's some dove or anything like that. I do think, like, there's this Politico piece here. Scared to death, GOP security hawks slam Vance selection. By choosing the Ukraine skeptic, Ohio Senator Trump accelerates his party's rejection of its Reaganite roots. So really, like, that entire discussion is entirely about Ukraine. He's like, Vance is in lockstep with every single other conservative and liberal, basically, about what America's foreign policy and, like, geopolitical strategy should be. But they have a difference about arming and funding Ukraine. He's fully supports Israel, fully wants to bomb Iran, wants to pivot to China. But there's one war that he's mildly critical of, and they're already freaking out over it. I've got a breakthrough news piece that seems pretty pertinent about the aftermath of the Trump assassination attempt. And by the way, there was, like, news about this, like, shooter, about the would-be assassin, because they've actually gotten into his phone. And it just seems like, really, he's a little weirdo nut that was just looking for someone to shoot. He was searching Biden as well. He was looking at Trump, and he just basically chose that Trump rally because he was close to where he lived. It seemed like he was just, like, in the mood to shoot at someone important. As usual, I'm always curious about who's on the other end of those Discord conversations with some of these folks. But in a country of rampant available deadly weapons and a lot of people that are severely unbalanced, it's going to create a toxic mix. Didn't like either one? No, it's not so weird at all. Location. Before I throw on this breakthrough news piece, which is the Trump shooting and the crisis of U.S. capitalism, we can put that on next. We've gone on 2.5 hours here at the stream. If anyone would like to subscribe to this program, I'm a mere, I know it sounds crazy how close it is, but I'm a mere 29 subs away from the sub goal. It's only my 4th stream back after being gone for 3 weeks. 29 subs away from the goal. If you do support this program and you like tuning into this show, folks, and you want to support me and the work that I do here, please subscribe or give subs if you can. Help me make the little number at the bottom of the screen go up. It's the only way that I'm able to keep doing this show each and every day, is if the little number at the bottom of the screen goes up. I haven't really mentioned it all today. We've been talking a lot and looking at a lot of this stuff. But if you can, please do subscribe. Help me make the little number go up. 29 subs to go. Should be no problem. If you can, please subscribe. You can gift subs. We got Kijiji Genie leading the way this month for gifted subs, followed closely by Risk Inverse and Comrade Bushy. Anyone else could get on the board by subscribing to this program or gifting subs. You can gift, of course, 5, 10, even 20 subs and trigger all kinds of very cool alerts.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
We love those alerts. Thank you, Top Scruffy, for the tier 1 sub. 39 months. Heck yeah. It's good. It's very good stuff. So would anyone else like to subscribe to this program before we move on here? Before we move on, would be fantastic to make the little number at the bottom of the screen go up. Let's have a different alert every time. Let's have a different one every time. I love it. Little Baby Beef, though, thank you for the gifted sub. Very cool. Total of 6 in the channel, which puts Little Baby Beef as part of the elite tier
count on me.
of the friendship triangle
Rob
system.
To talk you through all this.
That's Twitch's only 2-dimensional triangle-shaped friendship access and trickle-down cloud tiered reward system.
You can count on me. You're going to have
The
good
elite
old
member.
Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Husker, for the gifted sub to Hunter Biden. Wow. That's very cool. I really appreciate that, Husker. Thank you. And thank you, Diego, as well, for another gifted sub and for all the support over the years. Thank you, Diego. Very cool, folks. Are there any other brave heroes that would like to support this program and help me make the little number go up? Great friend of the stream, Hunter Biden. That would be a fantastic guest. That would be a big get. Jesus. Yo, he's got stories, all right. Little Baby Beef, thank you for another gifted sub. Very cool. Very kind of you. Why can't I have the fun alert? I don't know. That's a great question. It's a great question. Max, thank you for the 2 gifted subs. That's very kind of you. Very generous. And now we do have a hype train going, folks. So not only can you support this program, chat, you can also get access to some very cool and exclusive Twitch hype train emotes. Isn't that exciting? Isn't that so exciting? I think it is. I know I'm excited. Theo, it's your birthday today? Is that true? Oh, okay. They do this every day. All right. It's a bit. I'm unfamiliar with some of these bits. For 10 years straight now. Okay, I see. We have ongoing bits here. Like there's this ongoing bit here where people in the chat say that I don't respect women. And it's a funny gag. It's a joke. Not in any way a reflection of reality, though. Not in any way. In fact, it's the exact opposite of reality, frankly. Just in case that's not clear. In just a few brief moments, I will move on, folks. We got 3 minutes left of this hype train. Can we get to level 2? Can we get to level 2 of... can we get through level 2 to level 3? We're 60% of the way there. 2.5 minutes to go. Help me make the little number go up a little bit higher. I know how this works. You know how this works, folks. The number's got to go up. Oh no, we got another Biden stutter moment. Oh my goodness. Rob was respecting women before it was cool. That's right. It's true. Chat, just 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes left to get through level 2 of this hype train. A few more gifted subs is going to do it. I'm going to say 2 more is going to do it. And then I'll never bother you again about it until a little bit later today. And maybe immediately afterwards. You know how it works, folks, though. The numbers just got to go up. I wish it was not the same. I wish this was not the way. You know? I wish that number didn't have to go up, frankly. You respect women. Why would you want your daughter to marry an MS-13 member? Well, they're a self-starter. They're respected in their community. Small business owner. Anon, thank you for the gifted sub. Just 2 more and then just 20 more after that. Exactly. That's another slog, Raven. We got another slog happening. You still can't get another alert by going anon. I know if people give 5 subs or more, that's will for sure do an alert. For sure. I mean, in theory, someone could give 20 subs now and trigger the coolest alert that there is.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old
and
Rob
get to the goal.
Talk you through all this.
Living in the timeline where Trump and Biden both kicked the bucket.
That's still on the table.
Count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Hi, I'm here for the slog.
Pathogen, thanks for the 26 months tier 1, and thanks to Old Dutch as well for the 40-month resub at tier 2. I appreciate you both very much. Thank you. No, that Trump and Biden both kicking the bucket, that's absolutely still on the table. Absolutely. That would be the ultimate October surprise. For sure. Okay, well, I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on, folks. We do have a hype train going. I don't really feel like just sitting here and like cracking the whip, trying to make the number go up for the next like 5 minutes or longer. Please do subscribe if you can, though, and help me make the little number go up. Help me see if I can get to the sub goal today. It would be fantastic. Help me climb out of the hole that I'm in from taking a little vacation. But I did just see this as well, and I think this is going to be good to look at while we're talking about J.D. Vance specifically, and not only what a little worm he is, but how he's an absolute fraud as well. And I think this is what this piece is going to get at.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. War, Peace, and the Presidency, Breaking with Convention. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh.
We're continuing to look at Donald Trump's running mate, Ohio Senator J.D.
The ear
Vance,
posted
who
trend
first
is very
gained
funny.
fame after he wrote his memoir, Hillbilly Elegy. We're joined by Nancy Eisenberg. She's an American historian and the author of the award-winning book, White Trash, The 400-Year Untold History of Class in America.
She wrote a widely cited review of Hillbilly Elegy for the New York Review of Books in 2018, headlined Left Behind. She's professor emeritus of history at Louisiana State University. Welcome to Democracy Now! It's great to have you with us, Nancy Eisenberg. When President Trump named J.D. Vance as the vice presidential nominee, as his pick to be vice president if he wins, can you talk about your response, informed by your response to Hillbilly Elegy?
I love that jacket, Max.
Yeah, hi. I wasn't completely surprised because I did write a review that I think didn't go along with the general chatting class consensus that Hillbilly Elegy was somehow a revelation or told us the truth about the people who were supporting Trump. I'm more skeptical. I was skeptical from the beginning because memoirs are about self-fashioning. The strongest message in Hillbilly Elegy, which is the one that was echoed last night at the Republican convention, is the self-made man myth. This is the myth that somehow America creates opportunities, and just like Benjamin Franklin, you can fashion yourself and you can rise the ladder to success. And this is very much something that J.D. Vance, I think, believes in. It is a part
This
of
is
his
the
memoir.
libertarian billionaire
But much of what his
fracking
memoir
industrialist
says
version of
tells us
reality.
nothing about real class conditions. I mean, the person you just had on from Politico who talked about the Scotch-Irish tradition, that's a myth. That was a myth that was reinvented in the 1980s by people like Grady Whitney, who were trying to shift the debate to an ethnic identity instead of talking about class. And that is something that Americans have trouble addressing, is class divisions. And the Republicans don't talk about them, and the Democrats don't talk about them. And I think this is kind of the undercurrent of J.D. Vance. And I would say, on top of everything, the reason he was chosen, and what wasn't mentioned so far, is because of his youth. This has been in the news, the media, everyone's been attacking Biden for being too old, and then Trump is too old. So now they pick a 39-year-old young man who projects youthfulness. Why? Because it appeals to the media.
How is this guy younger than me?
He's on the ticket, and that he had his rise was created.
I feel like he
by
does
the
not project
mainstream
youthfulness
media.
at all.
It was the liberals.
I'm not
who
saying that I
embraced
do,
him.
but
It was the liberals who were reading Hillbilly Elegy, not Trumpsters.
And so, Professor Nancy Eisenberg,
He's
if
39.
you could, explain the argument in your book, White Trash, the 400-year untold history of class in America. First of all, explain the origin of this extraordinary phrase, white trash, and then what the myths are about class and poverty that pervade American political and social life, and why you think that's the case.
Well, my book is challenging the big myth about America, which again is the American dream, which is connected to the self-made man, that somehow magically at the time of the revolution, we broke from Great Britain and we eliminated aristocracies, we eliminated class divisions, and somehow we were a unique, free, liberated people. Well, none of that is true. We have throughout our history,
Someone tell the
heavily
patriotic
on English
socialists.
traditions. Where do you think we got our law, the common law? And not only that, the ideologies of class. have been pervasive in America. And I think this is the sad thing that we forget, and the reason that white trash still exists today is because it goes all the way back to the colonial period. It goes back to the Elizabethan period, when the original purpose on the part of the English for colonization was to dump the, quote, waste people.
J.D. Vance looks like if Al from Home Improvement spent a few hours in a rock tumbler smoothing out the edges. He does. He looks like like we talked about the Star Wars stuff. He looks like a failed clone of Al that you see floating in a jar. All the different versions of Al. J.D. Vance looks like one of those.
That's where white trash comes from, referring to the expendables, the people who were hurting the economy in Great Britain, dump them into the colonies, and get rid of the rubbish. That's the term that Thomas Jefferson used. He referred to raked from the rubbish. So trash literally means trash. And if you can think of any negative connotation associated with waste, that was part of the rhetoric as well. In our class system, what we also don't understand, this was very much a rural notion, because waste not only means rubbish, it means wastelands. And this is a part of the common law, but this is the idea of unfallow, unplowed, unproductive land. And these are the terminologies that provide the foundation for talking about white trash. And our class system, and this term has evolved over time. They referred to as crackers, squatters. They are people who are trespassers, criminals. Crackers comes from crack-brained, which attacks their intellectual abilities. So every negative kind of association that you can attach to a group, that has been applied to people who fall under this rubric. And we also have to distinguish, white trash doesn't include all people who are poor or struggling. There are more refined distinctions. So even to this day, there's a distinction among Americans in more rural areas, and particularly in the South, a distinction between white trash and rednecks. Rednecks are hardworking. Their necks are red because they're burnt from the sun. They were associated with living in the swamps in the South. Hillbilly is a very distinctive term, people from the hills that, in a sense,
I thought rednecks was a reference to the formerly strong
regions,
unionism.
Specific kinds of land. And this is important when we erase all of this, because we think that Americans are detached from the land. Well, property is still the most important source of wealth. And I think we need to remember that white trash is still with us. We have modern trailer trash. We have these terms that are still thrown around. But just changing the language isn't going to get rid of the class divisions. And that's where I think liberals are really at fault. You can't just rewrite the language, which historians have done. They refer to people moving west as squatters and eliminating the terms that were used at the time, as settlers instead of squatters and crackers. So we have to kind of face the fact that class divisions are real, and that there are distinctions. We can't just think of the urban poor as exactly the same as the rural poor.
Well, Professor Eisenberg, if you could speak, there is the question of white trash, that is to say, not only in economic terms, poor white people, but also Black and Latinx people, the vast, in terms of percentages of populations, by race and ethnicity. In 2022, 17% of Black people in the U.S. were living below the poverty line, compared to 8.6% of white people. So there is a massive intersection of race and poverty. If you could talk about that and how this figures in the whole conversation about class in the U.S.
Yeah, I think, but that statistic distorts things, because the population size of people who are classified as white is much larger. So there's widespread white poverty, and poverty shifts, depending on what region, what area of the country you're in. And there is Black rural poverty as there is white rural poverty. But I think one of the problems we have with this whole discussion, and I think other scholars have noticed this, often educated liberal elites have seen poverty as simply a Black issue. Well, it's not. And I think that we have to, and this comes from the 60s, from the idea of reducing everything to the urban context, that we have to sort of recognize that if we go back in time, one of the things that's quite striking is that the relationship between poor whites and poor Blacks was much closer than between poor whites and the aristocratic white elite who looked down on poor whites. Poor whites and poor Blacks often lived next to each other. They engaged in trade relations with each other. So we have to sort of recognize that poverty can have similar consequences for these two groups. And I'd also say the whole term poor white trash was also something that Blacks used to describe poor whites. And when I went on my book tour for white trash, many Black Americans, understood the story quite well, where I think for liberal elites, it's much more incomprehensible or surprising to them. So I think we can't kind of reduce or return to one of the political strategies of the South, where elites would try to increase the tensions between Black and white and create a sense of competition. And this goes back to the Confederacy. When they had to appeal to poor whites to make sure that they would join the Confederacy and be cannon fodder, they had to make the argument that if they don't support the Confederacy, that free Blacks are somehow going to be elevated above them. And this is something that is still today, is this idea of inciting competition between two groups. This is what Trump does when he incites competition between immigrants and supposedly, poor whites or middle-class Americans.
I don't really know how helpful that was. Here's Biden. What is this from? Is this from today? I thought he was isolating. Must have been before. Joe Biden was 83% sure this woman was his wife. Jill Biden was 100% sure. Joe Biden was 100% sure this woman was his wife. I don't know. I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know what to believe anymore. Jill certainly did get over there in a hurry, though. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. He's looking great. Looking great, sir. I think this is probably going to be
We need a new system. We need a new society. We need to demand that which may have sounded impossible even a few weeks ago, but is not only realizable, but an imperative necessity. An assassination attempt against Donald Trump over the weekend has changed the political equation in the United States. We're heading towards November at a time when the U.S. empire is in decline and when the capitalist system is in crisis. Welcome to the Socialist Program. I'm your host, Brian Becker. Today we're talking with Eugene Puryear. Eugene is an author, he's a political organizer, and he is the co-host of the Freedom Side Live, a live video show every Thursday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern on Breakthrough News. Eugene, welcome back.
Brian, thank you so much for having me again.
Well, in an instant, the political situation shifted once again inside the United States with the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. Already, Joe Biden, insulated from reality, apparently, by a close and smaller group of advisors, is insisting that only he can beat Donald Trump. Well, quite clearly, Donald Trump was winning before the assassination attempt. Now it seems to be even more conclusive that Donald Trump is definitely the front runner. The RNC is underway. There's some interesting politics there that I want to talk to you about. But let's just talk about the politics of assassination.
It's true, Lodin, with the turtleneck.
On November 22nd, 1963, John F. Kennedy, the president of the United States at that time, was murdered in Dallas, Texas. 5 years later, his brother, Robert F. Kennedy, was also assassinated right after he won the California primary. He was on his way to become the Democratic Party nominee. He would have very likely beaten Richard Nixon. He was promising to end the war in Vietnam, but he was dead. He was assassinated in June 1968. Of course, that came just 2 months after the killing of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We have other
Feels like Trump didn't get as big of a bump as I thought he would. Yeah, I know. It's like, I think the reports of the whole thing being over as soon as people saw that image were exaggerated.
Of course, the killing of Abraham Lincoln 4 days after the Confederate Army, Robert E. Lee's army, surrendered at Appomattox. That, too, had a profound impact. Anyway, there has been periods of extreme political instability, and they become hallmarked by political assassinations. In that context, let's just talk about what the attempted assassination of Trump might mean for politics going forward, or, in fact, already does mean.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, of course, we'll always have to see what takes place. But I mean, it certainly does seem that at least the attempt on his life and his response to it, the fist being up, the yelling for fighting, different things like that, the photos that have come out do seem to help Trump emphasize some of the themes that he wants to emphasize vis-a-vis President Biden, primarily the issue of Biden's age, the issue of Biden's mental infirmity, at least the alleged mental infirmity. But I think, we're all looking at what's happening. He's obviously slowing down quite a bit, where Trump, of course, looked vigorous in all of these different pieces. And even though he's being heavily critiqued by some Democrats, he was out playing golf, this, that, and the third. I think the overall sort of image that he's trying to present, that he's more vigorous, he's more out there, he's more with it, so on.
It's only 1.25.
So forth, are all bolstered by his response
to
the attempted assassination. Whether how people perceive it, of course, we'll have to see. But I do also think that it's opened up a challenge for the Democrats, whose only real, response to Trump was that he's the next Hitler, democracy will be over. I mean, that was their entire theme. But of course, now they've taken their foot off the gas. I mean, Biden has pulled down his ads for some unknown amount of time. Perhaps by the time, this show airs, they'll be back up. But certainly Biden is emphasizing, and in the context of what he himself is emphasizing and everyone was emphasizing around the need to take down the political temperature inside of the United
really
States.
Fast.
Well, that essentially means vis-a-vis what the Republicans are saying, that Biden's own statements, that he's the next Hitler type of stuff, was behind the assassination, that the Democrats will not actually be leaning on what at least they perceived to be their strongest sort of campaigning option, which also gives Donald Trump an opportunity to mainstream himself a little bit more. I mean, of course, he was trying to contrast himself with Biden in terms of his physical issues and mental issues, but also in terms of now being able to break out of the box of being, the next Hitler, anti-democratic, all these other things that Trump was obviously struggling to say that was not who he was, the issue of being against a national abortion ban and so on and so forth. But now this gives him an even bigger chance to do that, because the Democrats won't be able to present him, or at least probably will not present him, in the same light, which means he'll be able to speak to those who may have been concerned about the critique that the Democrats are making of him, that he is unusually anti-democratic, that the U.S. political system will collapse under him, that perhaps a form of fascism will rise under Trump. And of course, whatever one thinks about Trump, whether you love him or whether you hate him, if you have that type of fear that is not being heavily promoted around him, it obviously makes it easier for him to win. So I think on a range of different fronts, the attempted assassination does make it easier for Donald Trump to emphasize the things he'd already been emphasizing, but in a way that is easier for him, because the Democrats won't be presenting as much of an opposition to his attempts to emphasize these various themes.
One of the things that jumps out during every election cycle, Eugene, is how the Democrats present the Republicans as basically the end of the world. I can remember even parts of the left supporting Mondale in 1984, because they said if Reagan is reelected, it's the end of democracy. The Democrats have been making the same sort of assertion, and parts of the left who rightfully fear fascism, because fascism is an organic element in capitalist politics, especially capitalism in crisis, capitalism in decline. They
Fortunately,
think, well,
that's
yeah,
not happening in the
fascism.
US of
But,
A,
you know,
though.
this is a false narrative. I think it's a truly false narrative, and one that the left should resist. When you look at Biden's policies, when you look at the Democratic Party's policies, and you look at what Trump stands for and what the Republicans stand for, they have much more in common than what separates them. They both support the military-industrial complex. They're both servants of Wall Street. They're both unanimously almost support every increasing military budget that gets introduced in Congress. Both parties actually add to the budget request from the Pentagon. The budget for death and destruction for the Pentagon is almost $1 trillion. And when you look at real military spending,
Liberals that speak of future fascism instead of present don't live in reality. Yeah, and listen, I think you can acknowledge that like Trump maybe has designs to even further make a kind of like more autocratic system in place. But again, it's a question of like you're coming from a place of severe privilege if you look at America right now or over the past several decades and be like, oh, no fascism there. Like, look at the prison system in the United States. Tell the people that are basically modern day slaves in the United States prison system, which Joe Biden helped put in place with his own policies over his career. Tell them that America's not a fascist state, you know? Tell the people in Gaza that America is not fascist, or Iraq or Afghanistan or Syria or Libya or wherever else. Like, it depends on who you ask. Like, there's already victims. There's already victims of this system that have no democratic input, that are completely like, completely controlled and dominated by this system, you know, by this police state. No, they are literal slaves. No, it's like and you're seeing all these stories about like, you know, graves outside of prisons, like where when I think of the American prison system, I think about what the history books are going to say decades from now. Like you read about the concentration camps and Nazism and stuff. I think decades from now, we're going to read about what has been happening in the U.S. prison system for a long time, and really wonder like, how was this allowed to continue? Like it's shocking. So that's what I mean. It's like I understand the concerns about Trump and you know the elements of the kind of Trump movement that do want to kind of lean into that like authoritarian tendencies or autocratic tendencies or whatever. But the idea that America is not currently fascism, again, not currently fascist, it's really hard to come to that conclusion if you really look into, you know, the type of people that are affected by this right now, not like at some possible point in the future. I think decades from now, our planet won't support human life. I mean, I know that there's plenty of folks that are believe that. I don't know if I fully believe that. I don't know. Certainly, things are going to get a lot worse. It appears that way. Seems to be kind of inescapable. The idea that like we're going to hit this tipping point where no human life is going to be supportive. I'm not sure if I believe that. Maybe I just don't want to believe it. I don't know. But my point is that I'm trying to make, though, is that, you know, this idea of, America might become fascist. Well, for many millions of people, America has been fascist for...
You're going to have good old Rob.
Its entire existence. Like, go back to the transatlantic slave trade and the genocide of indigenous peoples.
Clearly, Trump will step on the gas pedal, but you can just look out the window now and see we're already pretty far in fascism county.
I think that's a good way of framing it, Sir Brain Damage, and thanks for the 29 months tier 1. I kind of just hope for it. It says not human 82. Well, that's very nihilistic. I don't know. I got little kids, so I'm hoping that is not the outcome. I don't know. I just feel like it would be hard to go through life feeling that way of what you're just describing. Like, why not just, I don't know. Anyway, I'm doing the Biden thing myself. Fascism based itself on existing American systems and Canadian as well. I don't think there's a way to separate America from that ideology. No, I mean, this is what we've talked about a lot. You know, the whole America's entire existence, you know, the genocide of indigenous peoples, the transatlantic slave trade, Jim Crow, all of this was heavily influential on Nazi Germany, which we think of as like the prototypical fascist civilization. And then after the war, bringing in all these Nazi elements, the whole like U.S. Nazi alliance that I've spent a lot of time talking about. This idea that America is like, might become fascist at some point in the future, falls apart at really basic scrutiny over a lot of American history.
It's about $1.5 trillion. This is in a time when homelessness is soaring, when people can't make ends meet, when inflation is ravaging the working class.
No, the economy is great, though.
Again, we go through this election cycle every 4 years, and the presentation is made, this is a life and death question. I want to ask you this. Trump is clearly distancing himself a little bit from Project 2025, that 900-page report from the Heritage Foundation, which calls for basically an undoing of what they call the administrative state, or what we might call undoing all of the progressive reforms that have been achieved by the labor upsurge of the 1930s, or the upsurge of Black America in the 1960s.
That is really one amazing thing to do. This whole Project 2024 or whatever it is, coming from the Heritage Foundation, going back to Obama. Where did Obamacare come from? That's what Obamacare came from, the exact same conservative think tank that leads to all this like disastrous, horrifying policy that they're all terrified of now. You know, maybe you just shouldn't pass legislation from this organization if you're so concerned about the things that they stand for.
Trying to roll all of that back. Trump is trying to distance himself from that, which doesn't mean it's not his real program. At the same time, the RNC has adopted a very right-wing program, along with some, sort of little demagogic caveats that are designed to sort of appease working class people who can't pay high prices. I just want to get your sense of it. I mean, here we can expect now a Donald Trump White House, perhaps a landslide victory. I don't think this is actually, quote, fascism coming to power. I do think it will be a challenge, but it really is up to what people do, what the working class does, what young people do, what the left does, rather than waiting on the sidelines as spectators to see which of the two evil candidates gets selected. Anyway, I want to get your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, well, I think there's a number of points. I mean, first and foremost, let's remember that the civil rights movement emerged under fascism. We don't really discuss it like that at all, but the Jim Crow South was a fascist dictatorship, and thousands of people rose up heroically in the midst and the reality of fascist dictatorship, murder, Klan, all this kind of stuff that we know. So, I mean, the idea that somehow social movements and progressive movements of people lose all agency, even in an extremely right-wing fascist ideology, make no sense to me. I mean, if you look, and I think people should go back and do this history at the service department of the Ford Motor Company, run by Harry Bennett, and the fascist tactics that they used against the Union there in Ford, well, that failed. And despite the fact that in 1932, they shot down the Ford workers, despite the fact that they had every form of stool pigeon and everything like that, and Henry Ford, by the way, was a fascist and a supporter of Hitler, nonetheless, the CIO prevailed. So I don't want to underplay this issue, but I do think it's important for us to recognize and to also continue to uplift the fact that the social movements that people look to in the history of this country, the civil rights movement, the labor movement, the abolitionist movement, the Harriet Tubmans of the world, so on and so forth. I mean, all of these people were facing conditions that, I would argue that even if Project 2025 was fully implemented, would still, in fact, not be as bad as many of the situations in which these individuals emerge. So whatever happens, however bad it is, however far right it is, I think the idea that we should just despair and think that there's nothing we can do is totally incorrect. And I think that we have to push back against that very heavily in terms of what it really will take to move the country. But I think there's also some deeper points here. I mean, first and foremost, and I'm glad you referenced Reagan, and when people talk about they're trying to get rid of all the things from the civil rights movement, all the things from the labor rights movement, well, I mean, when have the Republicans since Reagan not been trying to do that? I mean, the entire Republican Party program since the Reagan presidency has been exactly that, to roll back the gains of the civil rights movement, to roll back the gains of the labor movement, to roll back the gains of the women's rights movement, and they've moved aggressively to do so. Some of the things have only come to fruition, recently, for instance, the taking away of a woman's right to choose, but especially around civil rights and labor rights.
Construction
these things have
sounds
been constantly under attack by Republicans, and on top of that, Democrats have also helped facilitate some of these points. It was Bill Clinton, of course, who pioneered the tough on border issues, and that was in context with his broader quote unquote law and order push. I could argue that Bill Clinton actually achieved more than Ronald Reagan, who wanted to achieve the same thing in terms of implementing law and order policies that destroyed the Black community. It was Bill Clinton that we restructured so-called welfare which
I'll
even
be
of
back.
itself,
Talk to the
name
chair.
welfare, I think, is a psychological op, but anyway, let's not go there. He dismantled welfare, which obviously was a huge, or at least restructured it in a way that had significant impacts on child poverty, as he was told at the time by, many Democrats. That, of course, was a historic legacy of the Democratic Party. I mean, I could go on and on and on all these different points, but just to say, I think the essentializing of Project 2025, it's not that it's not bad, it's just that this is actually not that different from the Republican Party program basically since Ronald Reagan. And it's essentially the exact same things that they've tried to put forward since that time. And again, as I point out, some of which have, of course, been facilitated by the Democratic Party. So I think we have to also recognize that the Republican Party, I mean, you could maybe go back before Reagan, but let's just say from the post-Reagan era, really maybe even since Reagan's primary run in 1976, has in fact been primarily focused on this one piece. And that is to roll back the gains of the civil rights movement, the labor movement, and so on and so forth. Why is that the case? Because the Republican Party, under the leadership of Reagan, following his primary insurgency in 1976, has become the principal, not the only, but the principal instrument of the capitalist class to push back against policies that they viewed to be, hindering their profitability. I mean, there was a crisis in the 1970s in the broader sort of governance of capitalism because capitalism was losing dynamism. That was when capitalism decided they needed to put in new policies. We've started to call those policies neoliberalism, the globalization of labor and the destruction of the industrial base of the United States, a drive against unions, massive deregulation and privatization, the increase of military spending and war, which is designed to make sure that any country around the world that had any different ideas about how the world should be governed, that they would be pushed to the side, suppressed, or completely and totally destroyed. Some of this started under Jimmy Carter, but it wasn't coherent under Carter. Reagan brought in a coherent program to implement what we've known as neoliberalism, which also included the rise of mass incarceration, understanding that they would be creating significant social problems and consequences in the black community in America, and they needed to contain the social fallout from that time. So this, from Reagan to Trump, and Trump, of course, a big admirer of Reagan, although Reagan was not apparently much of an admirer of Trump, has been the general idea. This is why Donald Trump had the $1 trillion transfer of wealth to the capitalists through his so-called tax cut program. This is why Donald Trump was against all regulations that could do anything for workers or for unions and just totally eviscerating them. This is why Donald Trump served the interest of the climate, the oil companies and others, regardless of what the impact is on the climate. This is the program of the Republican Party, whether they call it Project 2025, Project 2020, Project 1996, Project 1994, Contract on America, so-called Contract with America by Newt Gingrich. You will actually see the core issues are exactly the same, because for the capitalist class in America, they are trying to move things in a direction to increase their own profitability. And that's the final thing I'll say here, Brian, before I go back to you. We have to understand the shift to the right is structural. It's not personal. It's not just because a bunch of bad people got into power, but the political center of the country was deliberately shifted to the right by the big money interests who control politics in America because they wanted to make sure that they could have even more money, even more riches, and even more wealth. And they want to make sure that there's nothing that can push back against that. So they have increasingly empowered the Republican Party and the right-wing movements around it principally, but they have also captured elements of the Democratic Party. It's been called different things, Blue Dog Democrats, the New Democratic Network, and so on and so forth, to help shift the overall political center of gravity, the red lines of what you can and cannot say, further and further to the right. And that is why we have to understand, when we think about what the threat of fascism is in the United States, in America, that voting for the Democrats will not stop it, because the Democratic shift to the right is helping to drive the growth of the actual far-right, the actual semi-fascist and fascist forces in this country. I'll just give you one or two examples here. I mean, first and foremost, we know for a fact, going back to the history of the coup,
talk you through all this.
Rob, I'm here and ready to get subversive, sir.
Progressive Canuck, thanks for the 35 months. One little measly month away, Progressive Canuck, from a very exciting milestone for you. Thank you very much.
Ku Klux Klan, that the history of the inner
Eugene is so great.
between, the fascist forces and the state police forces and so on and so forth, the federal, the FBI and others, has been a key part in sort of incubating this. Well, Biden, of course, wants to increase money to the Border Patrol that's collaborating with these unbelievable border vigilante fascist networks. He himself, in his very garbled response of what he's doing for Black America, noted that he wanted to put 100,000 cops on the street. All of the cops, by the way, all of their unions who support Trump 100%, and who, as we saw, were willing to collude with groups like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, whose entire appeal was that they were in fact sheriffs and cops in order to build out the extra legal far-right networks to suppress protesters and so on and so forth. And you can see just right there that those two policies are heavily increasing the actual infrastructure that will help these far-right vigilante forces, where there's a blurred line between them, continue to grow and continue to strengthen themselves. Because the other key policies that you can see that are out there that are driving the growth of the far right, the contradictions that exist in the world. I mean, you look at Biden pushing the bloc politics against China. I don't want to get too deep into it, but the reality is the estimates from economists have noted that the division of the world into firm economic blocs with the U.S. on one side and China on the other side will reduce global growth by 7 to 12%. So the world will become poorer, the world will become hungrier, and the world will ultimately become more divided. The fact that we will have less collaboration with China on climate change will also mean that climate issues will continue to increase in a major way, even if Biden wins re-election and promotes solutions that don't meet the scale of the problem. Well, you look at what the far right and the fascist forces are actually capitalizing on. Immigration, that will drastically increase if the world is poorer, hungrier, and the climate change is forcing people's livelihoods out of existence. If you look at the issue of the feeling of economic mismanagement in the country, that will only increase people's feelings of that the economy is being mismanaged. I could go on and on in this point, but you can see that even if you say vote for Biden, the fact that he's not promoting solutions that meet the scale of the problem create the gray area that can be exploited by the far right and the fascist forces. So ultimately, people are saying Project 2025, it's obviously terrible, it's obviously bad, but this is the long-term agenda of the right wing of the capitalist class that is driving the agenda, that's bringing the Democrats along with them, that's creating the space that's being exploited by fascists. So no matter who wins in November, whether it be Biden or Trump, the far right will grow, the semi-fascists will grow, the fascists will absolutely grow, and ultimately the country will continue to spiral downward because neither party is actually proposing solutions that can solve the problems that affect people. And ultimately, we see these are the moments that the most odious political forces are able to capitalize.
Right, and that's why I think it's so important to build a socialist movement, and a movement that's independent from the two capitalist parties, a working class movement, a progressive movement, a movement especially based on young people who are always the agents of change. I want to pick up on some of the points that you made, Eugene, and just sort of think through some of those items. And I want our audience to kind of wrap their head around some of this too. You mentioned that neoliberalism actually started under Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan is this icon of the Republicans who are now pretending to be the great friend of the working man and of ordinary America. And they want to make America great again for workers, et cetera. All this demagogy. But when you think about what Reagan was actually doing, nationally, trying to encourage or support corporations going to other countries where they could pay workers lower wages. I mean, that's really what neoliberalism basically boils down to. Shipping production offshore, going to Mexico or going to China or going where in different places in the global south, because they could pay workers a lot less. They could make the products similar or same products. And because of new technologies, information, communication, the high-tech revolution, they could ship those same products back to the metropole, back to the mainland, back to the imperialist center. So you had a situation where large numbers of workers, I'm talking about millions of workers, in especially Midwestern cities, the industrial belt that became known as the Rust Belt. It didn't just rust. I mean, Reagan and his successors, including George H.W. Bush and then Bill Clinton, they made it rusty because they closed those factories down. They shipped them over. They allowed them to be shipped overseas. They did that so the capitalists could make lots of money. Then you have a situation like in Detroit, which is completely devastated by the offshoring of production to the global South countries. And you have Joe Biden and the Republicans teaming up for the Criminal Justice Reform Act in 1994 that basically doubled the prison population. Just as you said, if you don't need workers in urban areas, well, lock up their children. That's one way to get rid of a surplus population or labor that's now becoming.
And who's been the culprit that's been behind that? None other than Joe Biden.
And then at the same time, you have Bill Clinton signing NAFTA in 1994, or took effect January 1st, 1994. That allowed U.S. corporations to additionally move to other places, including to Mexico. Of course, the Zapatistas had an uprising against NAFTA on January 1st in southern Mexico. They said it would be a death sentence for indigenous corn growers, corn farmers in the southern part of Mexico. And in fact, it was, which led to massive migration of Mexicans to the United States.
And Dems and GOP still run on bringing jobs back from 40 plus years ago. Yeah, and blaming each other for the problem in the first place when they both happily participated in it, both parties.
But then, then the Democratic Party started losing its base, Eugene. I mean, the Democratic Party leadership, as servants of Wall Street, pursuing the same neoliberal policy as the Republicans and Reagan, undermined the industrial heartland of the country.
They keep bringing back like a 20th of that number.
Base.
Yeah.
All of this done
America's back.
In the service of Wall Street. All of this done in the service of, like mass or maximizing profits for the capitalists. Now, there was another element of this, which you're also touching on, and I want to tie this all together, which is the underlying issue of racism. You had Reagan starting his 1980 campaign in Philadelphia, Mississippi, not Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Mississippi. Why start there? And why start there with the slogan, "The South will rise again," which is what his campaign was talking about. Well, that's the place where the 3 civil rights workers, who you just wrote a major article about for Liberation News, that's where they were slaughtered. That's where they were massacred. That was a sign that Trump was moving towards this very heavily dosed racist campaign. Reagan also said we have to get rid of welfare because there are, quote, welfare queens. Well, that was an attack, not a dog whistle, almost a blatant, brazen attack against the black community and against black women, against black moms. And then you have Bill Clinton, not Reagan, actually ending welfare as we know it, as you pointed out. That was in 1996 when they cut off 10 million people from benefits overnight, and 7 million of them were children, dramatically increasing poverty for those people, those communities that no longer had access to industrial jobs. If you put this history together and then talk to working class people and say, yeah, but we got to vote for the Democrats. We have to vote for Biden because he's not Trump, because he's not the Republicans. It ignores the real history here, which is the thing you're pointing out, that the move to the right is a structural move by the ruling class. And the only way we can actually combat it is to build a socialist movement, a working class movement, a labor movement that can fight back. And I think that's what's coming. Go ahead.
No, I think that's a good point. And I mean, just to give people 2 more, elements of this, I mean, when you look at, say, for instance, the rise of so-called critical infrastructure laws to protect, energy infrastructure against basically people protesting climate change. If you look at the rise of cop cities all around this country, I mean, people have probably heard about Atlanta, but they're all around the country. I mean, you can actually see that these were both extremely bipartisan policies, especially the cop city thing, which in some ways is more led by Democrats than by Republicans. But the reason I think it's important to recognize that it's a bipartisan policy because it shows that actually both major parties are preparing at the state and local level, especially for not resolving the issues around all of the critical things facing society.
The cop
they
cities,
know they're actually not going to really resolve
any
any of the issues around climate change in a way that's going to prevent things.
You're not getting health care, climate policy. You're getting cop cities.
plan on it that's actually going to resolve the issue of climate change. And thus they know that people will end up taking more drastic action like they did at places like Standing Rock, like they did at places like Line 3 in order to try to save humanity and save the planet. So they pass in a bipartisan way a bunch of laws to make these egregious felonies with decades and decades in prison. These mayors of all of these major cities, many of them, almost all of them Democrats, in fact, many of them black Democrats, in fact, know very well that the social consequences for black people in the major cities, especially young people, are not going to be resolved. And thus their rebelliousness is going to continue to grow. And the Fergusons, the Baltimores, the Minneapolis, and the uprisings will continue to move forward. And so they are moving forward with their plan to put in more repressive forces to contain that policy. And I'll add on top of that, that when you listen to the Republican National Convention on the issue of quote unquote crime, the Republicans sound just like Eric Adams, London Breed, Andre Dickens, Muriel Bowser of Washington, D.C., and many of these other mayors who have the exact same rhetoric, which is also pushing the country further and further to the right. But you can see that structurally, both parties are preparing for the fact that neither of them have solutions to meet the scale of the problems that exist. Many of their policies will actually accelerate the challenges and the problems that exist, and that they have to strengthen the repressive forces to contain the outrage and the anger of what is going on. And as you said towards the end there, the issue of a revived labor movement or working class movement has to be one that is factoring into this as well. And I think it's factoring into the context of how they're even messaging. I mean, you look at the propaganda that's coming from both parties. One thing I think is interesting, and one thing I think actually should be heartening to the working class people who are fighting back in every way they can, is both the Republicans and the Democrats now all of a sudden, you know, in America, it's very rare that people speak to the working class as a political subject. Almost never, actually. I mean, in the post-World War II era, there is no working class, right? Everyone's either poor or middle class. But putting that aside for the time being, Democrats and Republicans, working class, working class, working class. Biden and Trump, working class, working class, working class, working class, working class. Now, these are two massive billionaire-run entities. They have access to all of the possible data you could ever want. So what else could you really take from that other than to say that obviously society is becoming more class conscious? And in a society where 85% of people are saying they're having at least some difficulty meeting their expenses week to week, 1/5, by the way, saying they're having a very great amount of difficulty finding their expenses, meeting their expenses week to week. In a society where 69% of people told a New York Times poll they think the economy needs either major transformation or to be totally torn down. In a place that we have seen the UAW and the Teamsters have big contract fights. We've seen big corporations like Starbucks have waves of unionization sweep off of them. We've seen multiple different uprisings in black communities all across the country. We've seen the immigrant rights movement emerge. It seems pretty obvious that the two major parties recognize if they want to continue to push their agenda, which does not help workers at all, they can't try to speak to them in an oblique way. They have to try to speak to them as workers and say, we are helping the working class, because they recognize the anger that exists and that is causing people to get more class conscious, to see things as class against class, themselves versus the elites. And so in addition to preparing their repressive apparatus, as I was just mentioning about, they're also shifting their propaganda to try to co-opt as many working class people as possible into their two various political camps, because they recognize that the issues are sharpening and that their billionaire donors that control their two major parties could be in trouble unless they try to disrupt those trends. So at the end of the day, I think it's a good sign that all of these various forms of fight back are affecting the capitalist class. It's raising their fears. It's raising their fears that they will be overthrown directly, thus why they're strengthening the repressive forces to try to send people to jail and shoot them down in the street. They're worried that it's going to affect them indirectly, which is why they're shifting their political consciousness, because they recognize their political messaging, because they recognize that third parties that have a real working class agenda could in fact emerge, and that there is an increasing desire of people to move in that direction. You have 30 to 40% of the country saying they sympathize with socialism. So you can already see in an indirect way and a direct way that they are fearing that the fight back of working class people could affect the stability of their system. Not just the stability, their ability to rule in general over everything that's happening. So to me, me, it seems to say that strengthening of unions, the growth of unions, strengthening of organizations that are fighting against police terrorism, strengthening the role of those who are fighting for the rights of immigrants, and I could go on and on. People can get what I'm saying. Strengthening the role of the climate change movement, that all of these things are critically important. They are critically important and more important in terms of turning around the direction of the country. If you want to have a radical course correction in where the country is going, it can only happen when there's a clear political pole that's actually speaking not just to the problems, but the scale of the problems. That's certainly not the Republicans. It's not going to be the Democrats. It's only going to be an independent movement of working class people. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy when people say, well, that can't happen. Well, if everyone says it can never happen, it'll never happen. People said for many years, you could never change the South. You could never change the things around civil rights in America. Too late, it's in. But people said, you know what? No, we're going to do that. People said, you're never going to end slavery. But people said, you know what? We're going to go for that. And in fact, when you look at the history of the civil rights movement, you look at the history of the labor movement, you look at the history
which
of the
liberals were
movement,
opposed to every step of the way.
The same way that the people who are the most, who claim to care about this, and this is where I put a lot of liberals and civil rights, liberals and people who support the Democrats, the people who claim to care about these issues. Oh, we're against slavery. Oh, we're for unions. Oh, we're for civil rights. They always say to people who say, well, we have to move more boldly and more aggressively and outside of the existing political establishment. Oh, you're unrealistic. Oh, that'll never work. Oh, there's no way that you're ever going to be able to overcome this. They always say that. It's always a small group of people with a clear sense of purpose who say we're going to break out of the two-party establishment paradigm in this country and boldly set out a political pole to challenge slavery, to fight for the rights of workers, to fight against Jim Crow, who start these movements that actually end up succeeding. It never starts because some president comes down from on high. It certainly never starts because some Democratic Party, or if we're in the abolitionist era, some Whig Party, political hack, is able to conduct and concoct some, way to influence the president or whatever to make this happen. It happens because people build movements from the grassroots, from the ground up, which means several things. I mean, it means that it is a big challenge. It means that the payoff isn't right away. It also means that you are, demonized, jailed, or killed. I mean, all these things are true. But if you look at how slavery ended, and I'll end on this note, 1850s. In 1850, you had the Compromise of 1850, the rise of the Fugitive Slave Act. The slave power was more powerful than it had ever been. The major political party system started to break down because people wanted to be against slavery, but there are a lot of ideas about how that could happen, and there were other issues that were involved. You end up with 3-4 parties that are vying. But I just want to make this note. Society in the lead up to 1860 became significantly more violent. I mean, you had the Kansas issue, Bleeding Kansas, and what was happening there. You had the rise of vigilance committees all across the North, which people should study and learn about, especially as we consider the issue of immigration, where people, to prevent fugitive slaves and non-slaves being kidnapped and taken back to the South, armed themselves and many times would raid courthouses and physically remove people and fight and sometimes do great damage to these pro-slavery bounty hunters who were coming in the North. And then, of course, it is, part of the thing culminates in 1860. You have the Civil War. Not that I'm saying we need to move towards the Civil War, but it's just to go to my earlier point in terms of how change is really going to be made in this country. It's not just an issue of, preventing people little by little, vote against the worst possible thing. It's chaos and turmoil happens because we're talking about the entrenched interests being challenged in a real way. And if your idea is that we can only make change in circumstances that are seemingly more favorable, you're wrong. Change is often made in situations that are very unfavorable to those who want to make change. And so you can't just look at, we have to vote for the Democrats because I'd rather fight in a Biden administration than a Trump administration, as if that guarantees success. Well, it doesn't guarantee success, and history will prove to you that it does not guarantee success. I mean, in the 1950s, the Democrats, who would later support civil rights, were worse than Eisenhower on civil rights. I mean, in 1956, Eisenhower, who did nothing really for civil rights, but he started campaigning with Jackie Robinson, and he invited him to come sit in his box at a baseball game. And the whole reason he did that is because he knew that Adlai Stevenson, because of the Dixiecrats, could not appear socially with a black person. And so even though he did nothing for them, he was able just through optics to appear as better to black voters. And many of these Democrats claim to be liberals who were for civil rights. And ultimately, some of them would go on to support civil rights in the 1960s. But to say if you voted for Adlai Stevenson and the Democrats somehow is going to be better for civil rights, I mean, it's not a great analogy, to be honest with you, because the 50s was very different. But the point I'm trying to make is this idea that somehow you're favorable. I mean, I think when a lot of people voted for Clinton in 1992, they didn't expect a lot of the things that he did. Certainly trade unions didn't expect a lot of the things that he did. I don't think the black population, even though there were some indications, expected it to be as bad as it was. So there's a logical fallacy that's built in here, I think, about the lesser of two evil politics that is necessarily better. I mean, before 2020 election, I was on a show, the Katie Halper show, where I debated with someone who said I was a terrible person. I wanted Iranian children to die because Biden was going to be better on Iran. Well, what happened there? And ultimately, I think we can go down the list and see many of these things.
More great stuff from Eugene. Eugene's just tremendous. A tremendous guy. And I'm going to link the video. That was we got about halfway through. I'm going to link the video in the chat there. Please do make sure that you check out the rest of that and subscribe to Breakthrough News. One thing, because in the context of this like idea about, you know, this structural shift to the right, that's why I was laughing at this tweet the other day because of Elon Musk that says the Democratic Party has moved so far to the left that the Republican Party is now closest to the center. And people are posting all these bullshit fucking memes like this. Oh yeah, the Democratic Party, that's the problem. They've just gone so far to the left that people like Elon Musk just have no choice. They have no choice but to support the Republicans because now they're the moderate, reasonable ones. It's just completely ahistorical, completely idiotic. And when I tweeted about this, I don't know what accounts have been like quote tweeting this. I just said, in order to believe this, you have to be insanely stupid. It got at 4 million views. 4.6 thousand replies to this tweet. I've not looked at one of them. Because, you know, as soon as I saw that there was thousands of people responding, I was just like, well, mute that. Just don't pay any attention to that. But like, I don't even want to imagine what fucking accounts have been quote tweeting this and commenting on it. I just don't. It makes no difference to me, honestly. Any tweet that escapes containment like that, I just mute it and I just don't really look at it. But this is like an astounding number of replies. 4.6 thousand. This lady says he's Autumn Fox. Says he's correct. You're in too much of an extremist bubble to realize what you've become. all the blue checks weighing in. Well, facts don't care about your feelings, though. None of them are coming there with like counter arguments. And if there's ever a counter argument, it's all identity. This is how completely brainless these people are now, right? It's all based on like social progressivism, and that's all. It's nothing about like economic policy, nothing about foreign policy. It's purely just wokeness and the fact that like trans people and other people that are part of the LGBTQIA plus community exist and basically get nominally supported by the liberal establishment despite like not really doing anything for these groups. That's the entire shift to the left that they're talking about. It's purely identitarian, purely social progressivism. That's all these people think about. But that's just like I can't believe how many replies this got. It's like insane. And I'm sure it's very unhinged, and I'm sure there's accounts that are quote tweeting and stuff. I just recalled, I don't know if people remember this, a couple months ago. Or no, it was probably like last year sometime when I think Bernie instantly endorsed Biden when he was going to be the nominee. And I did this tweet that was like contrasting Bernie in 2019 saying, I'm coming after the establishment and I'm not going to let them win, and being like, well, it looks like the establishment won. And so many people got upset about that. All the cooler than cool online Brooklynites were real mad about that. And like, wow, look how the tables have turned. All the irony bros were just incensed. They were outraged by this comment. Just remembered that. Just had a brief little trip down memory lane. There were some absolutely unhinged replies to that one. For daring to suggest that Bernie had given in to the establishment. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for saying that. Man, you hate being right all the time. I'm sorry if it's petty, but sometimes it just does, sticks in my craw a little bit. Some of the things that people say about me. And like, it's one thing when it's these like Elon Musk sycophants, but when the cooler than cool irony bro lefties come after your boy for making totally reasonable statements that should not be controversial in any way, it does stick up there a little bit. Anyway. Oh, this was not just the vouchers. No. This was not just the vouchers. This was all your faves. All your faves have been implicated. Don't worry, I'm not petty though. I'm not petty. I barely even think about this stuff. Don't worry about it. Anyway, folks, going on 4 hours into the stream here. Halfway to the sub goal. I'm going to just one more call to action here. Remind folks to please subscribe to this program. Of the guy who's right, even when people get mad, who has good, correct takes that all kinds of people get mad about. And if you want to support this program, if you like tuning into this show each and every day, if you want to support the work that I do here on Twitch, please subscribe if you can. Help me make the little number go up. Help me make this little number turn into this good number. Okay? It's the only way I'm able to keep doing the show each and every day. I've been doing this 4 years. A daily live stream, 3-4 hours a day for 4 goddamn years now. So if you want to support the work that I do here, if you enjoy tuning into the show, please subscribe if you can. Please help me out. Help me keep this show on the air, and join the community. Support the community. And join Twitch's only 2-dimensional triangle-shaped friendship access and trickle-down clout tiered reward system. I suggest you tell these people that they should consider checking themselves before they inevitably end up wrecking themselves. Well, maybe I should. I just don't like arguing with people, honestly. I really don't. Fuck them. I don't like getting back and forth with people on Twitter or wherever else. I don't enjoy it, I'll put my ideas out there. People are free to get mad at them. Do your little quote tweets. Do your little discourse. Do your little dunks. I don't know. Do your little screenshots. It's fine. It makes no difference to me. Just leave me out of it, That's kind of been my viewpoint over the last couple of years that I've been doing this. Weird how no apologies have been forthcoming from that very mild comment I made about Bernie and bowing down to the establishment. I remember years ago, I suggested that Ronald Reagan was a worse president than Trump, and a lot of the same people, what? This guy's Canadian. You don't know what you're talking about. Because I suggested the guy that invented fucking neoliberalism and created our whole economic reality that we're still living through the fallout of now was worse than Trump. A lot of people got mad about that one as well. And again, it was the cool irony fans. I'm sorry if I sound bitter. I am bitter, frankly. I am bitter at some of this stuff. I'm bitter and I'm petty, or I can be. I try not to be, but I can be sometimes. Reagan was tougher, though. Took a chest shot, not a piddly ear one. Yeah. I was seeing as well clips of Reagan at a rally in the like a few months after that, where like a balloon went off, a balloon exploded, and he just instantly was like, "Missed me." The old Gipper, he was very evil, but he could think on his feet until he had massive holes in his brain as well. The Gipper. Was that a 22? I don't know. I don't know anything about guns. I do know a 22 is a low caliber. I remember Reagan being shot. Now everyone understands how he felt. We did not care at all. You look at the political assassinations and like Malcolm X, MLK, Fred Hampton, JFK, even RFK. I don't know if you want to put them in the same category, but and then you have Reagan and Thatcher both survive assassination attempts. Trump surviving assassination attempts. Like, what the fuck? We couldn't have gone had a little better average there, you know? What kind of a world would we be living in if Reagan had gotten got and Malcolm X was still alive, you know? Anyway, folks, halfway to the sub goal. Halfway to the goal. If there's any other fine individuals that would like to support this program, please do. Please help me keep the show on the air. Always a little bit painful when the call to action leads to no results. When I come up empty on the call to action. You know? Always a little depressing. So if there's any fine individuals or brave heroes that would like to support this program and subscribe, or also you can gift subs, you can gift, 5, 10, 20 subs, you can also do that. Yeah, we talked about that yesterday, Old Dutch, the absolutely pathetic, concern trolling. Oh, don't joking about the president being shot. Oh no. All the phony outrage about it. Give me a fucking break.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to.
Oh no! Don't joke about the president being shot. Oh no! So upsetting. Kijiji, thanks for gifting a sub to Scotty. Eventually, Scotty's going to tune into one of these. Eventually, Scotty's going to log into Twitch and seeing that he's getting these invites, and he's going to tune in. Are there any other fine folks that would like to support this channel? Oh, Admiral Praxis. Whoa, very, very kind of you. Thank you for the 1,000 bits. Very cool, Admiral Praxis. Very, very much appreciated. God, I gotta fix that. I really have to fix that. But Anon, thank you for the gifted sub. Very kind of you. Log into the site for 2 minutes to fix it. But it's not because there's no, like, when I look in my settings, there's no, all the alerts are where they're supposed to be. Sorry, I'm just seeing if I'm blurry. Don't mind me. Well, gang, I should be back tomorrow for the final stream of the week. We'll close out the week strong. It's been great to come back to spend time with you all again. Thank you all for tuning in. As usual, I appreciate you very much, chat. Adrian just tuned in. Well, I know, as soon as you tuned in, it's my content. That's my cue to leave. Sorry, I don't mean to be mean. I was just joking. That's not true. Leo isn't streaming, so I can't rate her. But thank you for tuning in, chat. I appreciate it. It was very cool. I will be back tomorrow. All right. There is still time for someone to come through it. That is a buzzer beater. For the buzzer beater 15 sub dono. It is still possible. It is possible for someone to be a real hero. Probably no one's brave enough for that, though, in this community. Probably no one's brave or cool enough for that kind of thing. Oh. It's happening, Sean.